Well, I want a dog in general. And oh fuck. Melania Trump is releasing an NFT. Anyways.
Is that true? That's really funny.
Yes. Whatever. Wait, here's a tweet from Natan. I'm going to get banned for saying this, but every Supreme Court justice has a power core somewhere on their body, and if you can overheat it, they will be stunned and vulnerable to damage for several seconds. Is this the podcast yet?
Yeah, we're doing it. We're doing the podcast.
But how do we what?
Do a podcast?
No, we're supposed to be like, hey everybody, welcome to this episode of the Run Button Podcast. I'm Kylie Churchill. I'm Kylie Churchill.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not alone here on this podcast. I'm not the only one.
No, you're not.
All right, and we'll move on.
I'm introducing me.
Oh, only if you want to.
Okay. I'm Keith Carberry. I also do this.
Oh, welcome.
Podcast. I was just waiting for you to introduce me because I feel like that's how we normally do it.
No, I think we change it up.
Okay.
Yeah, I just thought
it seemed like you were gonna introduce me. Like it seemed like you just stopped in the middle of your part of it.
Okay.
Like instead of throwing to me,
right?
It felt like you either declined to throw to me, but also declined to introduce me.
I felt like, from my perspective, and I'm just speaking about how I felt,
and that's all that we can do as humans,
right? I felt to me like I tossed the ball to you, and you intentionally just let it smack you in the face and fall to the ground without reacting at all. And I thought we were doing a thing. I thought this was a bit.
No, from my perspective, you were trying to toss me the ball, and you did like a really goofy bad throw, and it like didn't even come close to me. And so I just stared at you like, what was that weird bad throw you did?
I mean, I introduced myself, and then I went, and with me is, and then I paused. Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess we're just going to have to agree to disagree on that.
Yeah, I guess we'll just have to agree that this is the Run Button Podcast and disagree that you're Keith Carberry. I think that's how that shook out.
Yeah.
We're here to do a 60-minute podcast. Because we are
which
known
we've already done 40 minutes of.
We're known for our short, concise podcasts that adhere strictly to a time amount.
We've already done 40 minutes of the podcast, so we're going to do about 20 more minutes.
Yeah,
live.
We got the garbage out of the way, and now we have an itinerary of topics. We could start from the top and go down. We could just pick one randomly out of anywhere.
Let's start at the top and go down.
At the top here, I'm seeing that Halo Infinite campaign came out recently, and we've both played a bit of it.
Yeah. How much is a bit for you?
I got further than your most recent live stream of the campaign that I think you did on like the first day or the day after.
Yeah, I did. It was like the next day, yeah.
I've played relatively little, like 3 hours.
I've played
max.
a lot of it, but I'm just like kind of swinging around and doing like all the side things. Mm-hmm. Not that there's a lot or that they're interesting. But I haven't done a lot of like the bigger stuff. Like, I haven't done a second story mission. I haven't done a second like purple thing, like the ransom keep. I have 2 more of them on my map to do, and I haven't done them yet. But I have played quite a bit of it.
Yeah, I don't think I've played it enough to really know the difference between the different events and stuff. It's just like
I know all the different events. Here they are.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So
biathlon,
there's
pentathlon.
There's FOBs, the forward operating bases.
Right. Oh, sorry. I only know these as FOBs.
I call them FOBs. I think they want you to call them FOBs.
But I come from the school of Metal Gear Solid 5, and so I only refer to them as FOBs.
So there's FOBs, and those are very brief moments of violence where once you're done, you have some more map.
Because you capture the bases,
right,
for the UNSC.
Yeah. There's the like rescue Marines thing, which come in 2 flavors. One flavor is they're tied up and you just kill everyone and then they get released. The other flavor is that you come in on a fight and help them not be killed.
Do you mean they're tied up and the first thing that you do is unleash them upon their unsuspecting guards?
That's not what. No, I just kill everyone.
Whether or not they live through it.
No,
I'm not here to make those kinds of decisions. Let God sort them out, I say.
I make the decision that I don't need their help to win, and so I just kill everyone, and then they all survive.
I make the decision that I need and want their help.
But I will take them after that to another one.
Yeah, then they follow you.
They follow you around, and then from the start, I've got this sort of ragtag group of underarmed former captives helping me free another group of captives, and that's fun.
Like underarms, like smelly pits?
No, they just don't have weapons because they were tied up. I mean, they find weapons, but when you find a group that's like fighting the Covenant, they've got like hydras and sniper rifles and like commando rifles. But when you find them and they are tied up, they just have like plasma pistols and needlers. So they're just like a little worse. So there's those. There's the FOBs. There's the propaganda towers. Right. And that's just like you just blow up a propaganda tower. And then there's other things that are propaganda towers, but you can't blow those ones up. I don't know why.
To me, the propaganda tower is like the most generic thing in this whole game.
Yeah.
It is like the tearing down the posters to turn public opinion on your side of like Halo Infinite.
Yeah, it is notably less interesting than in like Just Cause when you would do this by tying a rope to, like using a grappling hook to tie a statue to a Jeep and then driving the Jeep to like pull it down. You just throw a grenade at it.
Dude, what if you have a grappling hook in this game on a cable?
Yeah.
And you have warthogs.
You do have warthogs,
but you can't put them together.
No, you can't.
Now there's a game.
There's a game. And then there's like
I turned to 343 Studios, this mass of people like sweating and panting on the floor. Hey guys, in the next one, let me combine the Jeep and the cable.
And then there's the things like Ransom Keep. I don't have a word for them, but they're like
I don't remember if that is a major story or a medium.
It's not. It's
small.
It's just your biggest. It's your biggest non-story encounter type. They're purple on the map instead of yellow, and those are like fairly enemy packed. And there's I think like they are supposed to be multi-stage. Like first you got to go and do this. Then after that's done, you do another thing, and then you do a third thing, and then you've won. And then there's the story missions, which I guess can be anything. I've only done one since the open world started.
Oh, really?
I've only done the tower.
So we're like basically in the same spot. It just sounds like I just haven't been playing the game and you've been playing it, but like intentionally doing nothing but side stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know I'll say this. Like the multiplayer, I think that the game is extremely fun to play, but notably empty, missing things, missing stuff.
I kind of have the same feeling. The thing is, like, as I'm playing the campaign, I'm having fun. I played, like, I literally think I only played like one play session other than our streams, other than like launch day, but it was like 3 hours. Like, I couldn't put it down. It was, like you say, fun to play. Like, I don't know that I have any complaints about the campaign. I think really the bad taste in my mouth is just kind of like this weird sort of like unforced error of like the whole launch of this thing. Like, I feel like putting out the multiplayer 2 weeks early kind of like made me get somewhat bored of the game before the campaign was even out.
I'm
and
definitely
like
not
the whole cosmetic thing, like the ridiculous
miserable,
prices on
obviously.
that.
Yeah. I'm not playing the multiplayer as much as I was in the first couple weeks, but I'm still playing a lot of it. Like, I played it like a couple hours of it last night. They added multiplayer playlists, which is great. They're not exactly the playlists that I would have added. There's a lot of different kinds of Slayer that you can do now. So it's like,
well, that is what you wanted.
Well, yeah, I did want. Sorry, but they're not. So you had.
Are you just mad they're not giving you a Shoddy Snipes playlist?
No, but I'm like, no, not exactly. No. I guess it's sort of like they've given me proof of life, right? But I don't know, like, how often are they going to be changing these around? Because it's like, so they had Big Team Battle and Quick Play and ranked, right? That's all they had. And they added to that Free for All Slayer, what they're now calling Tactical Slayer, which is SWAT. It's just SWAT. You don't have a pistol. I don't know why. Probably because the pistol's too fucking good in this one.
It's way too fucking good.
But it was always really good in SWAT. But you're right.
It's just that if you started with a pistol in SWAT, no one would ever use a different gun because it's one hit. One headshot to kill anybody with a pistol if they don't have a shield.
But it's not quite as accurate as the big team as the battle rifle, and then it also isn't as long range.
Oh, I mean, in my mind, I think of it as being more accurate. I think it's more accurate. I mean, because the battle rifle is the 3-round burst, and the 3 rounds don't all go in the exact same spot.
No, but I think on SWAT it doesn't matter. I think you get one of them and it's over.
Pretty much, yeah.
In the head, anyway. I'm sure that they tested it and decided that just the battle rifle is fine. So they added Free for All Slayer. They added SWAT. They added Fiesta, which I'm glad. I like Fiesta. Fiesta is a great like junk food playlist. Yeah. For like when you're bored of doing the other stuff. They didn't add a single objective thing. So there isn't there still isn't a thing where you could just be like, I want to play only objective things.
But dude, that's the wait. But that's the main one.
No, because that also has Slayer in it.
You were complaining about. No, but you were just complaining that it never comes up with Slayer and it's only objective types, and now you're turning around being like, okay, well they gave us Slayer, but where's the objective types?
But that's what I was trying to say, is that it's like it's both. Like, it's that when I want to play Strongholds, I've got to go through. Sometimes it comes up right away, but like. Sometimes I have to play like 7 games to play one game of Strongholds. And the same thing was true of Slayer. It'll be even, it felt like it was always, I want to play Slayer and I'm playing through like 8 or 9 matches before I finally get, like, the dice comes up as Slayer. But it's still the problem of like, if you want to just play Capture the Flag, there's no way to just play Capture the Flag. You're right that for me, the thing that I get itchy of is like, it's been so long since I've had a Slayer game, I just want to play Slayer. But that still happens for the other
Yeah.
ones. Like, it's been so long since I played Oddball. Like, give me one Oddball, please.
That's funny. I feel like Slayer, to me, was the only one that felt like it never came up. Like, I feel like I get Oddball and Territories and Capture the Flag constantly, and Slayer only came up sometimes.
Yeah, Slayer was definitely the biggest problem, especially because it was like a bunch of different kinds of objective games where even though they're very different, they're all still objective types, versus Slayer is the only one that's Slayer. And now there's a bunch of different Slayers. And I would like to see them be ready to rotate those around. But, like, you know, the thing that they still don't have is, like, they haven't done, and this is probably a Forge thing. Like, you won't see this until they finally have Forge for a little while. But, like, I want to play Action Sack, Capture the Flag. Like, when is...
Wait, what?
Action Sack is the weird one that is, like, alternate game types, like weird game type stuff from Forge. But I can't, but because of the way they've released it, Action Sack won't exist until Forge exists, probably.
Maybe.
If at all. I guess that's really what I'm saying is, like, are they going to be updating the game types in a way that's satisfying, or are they not going to do that? I mean, because it's been 1 month and they just had the first playlist refresh, and I don't think that's a bad rate. Like, if they refresh it once a month, you know, but who knows? I just still,
who knows?
I will just say that I'm glad that it came up. I wasn't expecting it, and it's better than nothing, and it's good, but it's, like, not as good as I like. It's not my wildest dream playlist set.
Let's hop back to the campaign. The thing I forgot to mention is my biggest disappointment with it by far was that it doesn't yet have co-op implemented. And that's why huge. I was so cranky on launch day. All the launch day streams, I'm in a real bad mood. And it's basically just because up until the very start of the stream, I literally thought we were about to do an online co-op launch day stream, and it became a single player only.
You didn't have the coping period that everyone else had.
No,
You had deftly avoided this bit of information.
Yeah.
That I swear that we talked about at some point, but
I'm pretty sure I heard about it and just forgot.
Blocked it out because it's such bad news.
It is bad news.
It's really bad news. And it sucks that it's not like, I know that this is the worst thing that you can do, that as, like, someone talking about games into a microphone.
Uh-oh.
This is the worst. This is the worst thing that you can do, but I'm going to do it anyway because of how strongly I feel about this.
Strap in.
Is it that fucking hard to do to just put co-op in there? Is it really that fucking hard to get co-op? So you had 6 years, guys.
Yeah. I kind of have to agree on this one. Like,
yeah.
And to be clear, like, all of, you know, in this case, you know, they say they're adding co-op later this year, to which I say, for who, what? Like, no one who has ever been playing a campaign 6 months after the launch of a game. I don't know. Obviously, 343 would have liked to have co-op in there, and it would have been Microsoft who decided, no, we need this game to come out. Like, to me, once you miss that initial Xbox Series X launch window, it's like, well, just wait until it's actually, like, good and done.
Right,
not
and
just
this also is like, I don't know, I can't tell you whose idea it was to, like, keep being way too optimistic about release dates to where it would have been embarrassing to have to delay it again. But that also is, like, a manufactured concern. Yeah. Where if they had just been like, yeah, it'll be 2 years. It'll be 2 more years. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like, then no one would have. It would have been on people's minds. But it's like, it's so much better to delay it for 2 years out the gate instead of being like, oh, 6 months. No, 6 months. No, 6 months.
Oh, yeah. Wait, I'll be right back in 2 seconds. Could you say something interesting and insightful about Halo Infinite?
The interesting thing about Halo, despite its really weird, like, staggered release, is how they've been able to put out a game that is, like, only the good things. Like, it's fun. It's weird because there isn't anything bad about what's in it. What is bad about it is only what's not in it yet. And so a lot of times I'm playing it and I feel a lot of different absences, and it's hard to be mad at a game that is not deficient in any particular way.
Right.
Like, because of what's been in, like, none of the content is bad. It's just that it is sort of like a slowly filling in skeleton. Like,
I think skeleton is maybe overstating it.
well, it was a skeleton, and now it was a skeleton. Now that the campaign's in there, it's like the muscle fiber is there. Like, it's a skeleton covered in muscle, but it still has no skin.
I thought Have you gotten the grappling hook cooldown upgrade in the campaign?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that
immediately
changes,
I did this.
That totally changes your mobility because it allows you to essentially climb using the grappling hook, because if you can get another one out fast enough, you won't have lost enough ground.
It's just fast enough to be able to like swing from tree to tree.
Yeah, the grappling hook cooldown becomes like almost like your Breath of the Wild climbing mechanic, where suddenly it's like every mountain you see, you're like, I'm gonna fucking grappling hook up that thing.
And then, though unfortunately, unlike Breath of the Wild, there is never anything you get from that except, yeah, I did it. I'm on the top of the mountain now.
Yeah, kind of true. And even, obviously, this is for like story purposes. Like, there's this section of the map that I didn't realize I was barred from until I was trying to use sick grappling hook skills to make it across a chasm to this other place. And just every time I would go across, like, I would die. Like, I would try to grapple hook and the grappling hook just wouldn't work. And then I would fall and die. And I was like, oh, they just don't want me to go here yet, which was kind of a bummer. But I will say, I'm not sure if I did, if this was the story mission thing that you said you hadn't done yet, but I'm wondering how much more like authored kind of linear campaign stuff is going to be in there, because there was the beginning mission before the open world, and at least one of the missions I did in the open world was kind of like, was it like boarding a ship or going into like a building?
The tower? You're talking about the tower.
Maybe I'm talking about the tower, and it kind of becomes like a linear level a little bit.
Yeah, there's a big open. There's like a big open base. You kill everyone down there, and then you turn on the grav lift to go into the tower, and then you're sort of climbing this dark tower, and then there's a boss fight at the top.
Yeah, I think
I'm
for
not
me so
thrilled
far
with the boss fighting.
I actually I thought it was a good fight. I mean, it was challenging.
It was challenging. It's interesting. It's like one of those ones where like you can see it on the stream that I did. I did the tower boss fight, and I almost get it that first time, and then I get wrecked 3 times in a row, like really quick. And then the 4th time, I'm like, okay, I figured out what to do. And like I got it, and it was, challenging but not difficult. And I was like, yep, this was nice. I liked it. But conceptually, I had a
different experience.
Oh, okay. Tell me about your different experience.
I died way more than you. I enjoyed the fight and the dialogue that the character had and stuff, but it was definitely like I heard that opening line of him, whatever he says. I heard the opening line like 20 times. And when I killed him, it was totally one of those like deep exhalation of breath in relief of like, oh, I did it.
So we're talking about the invisible sword guy, right?
Oh. No.
Oh.
My bad. I was thinking of the brute guy.
Oh, no, yeah, that's the first boss fight. I got him first try.
Whoops. Oh, fuck you. Fully get fucked, dude. So, wait, do you know what Kigyar is? Is that just, like, the name of the species that jackals are?
Oh, yeah, I think it is. Yeah.
Let me
I don't
see.
really
They're-
remember their. I know that brutes are like it begins with a J. It's like Geraniaral or something.
Yes, this is the Kigyar is the jackal species, which is fine. But my favorite part of that brute boss fight that like made me like laugh out loud was that one go I was actually killed by one of his jackals, and the jackal goes, "Haha, payday to Kigyar, you pay now," or something like that. They had some funny lines about. I love that like these jackals are just in it for the paycheck. But I for a second there I thought maybe that individual jackal's name was Kigyar, and I was like, "Damn, even the boss's minions have names? That's pretty cool." And they have personalities because this one just wants to get paid, but maybe just all the jackals just only always want to get paid.
Yeah, I actually haven't heard that at all.
I kind of like this.
It's funny because I killed that guy so quick. I don't even know what dialogue you're talking about.
That's so funny. There's just like a lot of like when he kills you, he's like, just a human after all, or like just a man.
Yeah.
But he says that if he kills you really fast.
This is the guy that you fight right before you get to the open world.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
I had forgotten it was before the open world, but yes, this guy. There's all types of different dialogues that he will give if he beats you in different ways, and yeah, the jackals also have their own lines. Like that stuff was definitely pretty cool. I think right now, because I'm early in the campaign, my feelings about the open world stuff is like it's clear that it's that typical open world trade-off of like the content and the experience is less authored, but you have more freedom and more choice of what you can do. And I think as I play more of it, I'm interested to see like what will the balance of like of specifically authored content to like open world side quest content is there going to be.
I would really like to see an expansion of the kind of things that happen in the open world, and my big fear right now is that there isn't going to be one.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like right now, like the open world seems like literally a giant Halo level in exactly the way that means. Like you do, I guess actually you do have an upgrade point system that you're working on through the game. But other than that, it's like it's just, you have two weapons like normal. You can drive a warthog if you get one.
Yeah.
They blow up though. Like it is really just
I think
second level of Halo but made into a campaign.
They
far.
They do add like a little bit through your sort of fob upgrade, not tree line, I guess. Where it's like now when I'm at a fob, I can call in a warthog, and there's enough Marines just hanging around that they can like fill my warthog full of people, and like that's fun to just be able to like drive a full warthog to the next mission. But like
they suck
it's not
at shooting though.
I actually have found them to be kind of effective enough.
Okay. All right.
Maybe it depends on what kind of weapon they're using. But
I meant specifically the warthog turret they're bad with.
Oh yeah, they're not the best. They're really slow at turning it. That's like the big issue.
Yeah.
I think
they fire in bursts. Like the thing about the turret is that it has infinite bullets, but they will only be like bang, 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 bang. And I'm like, stop role playing this. Just lay on it, please.
And unlike what I believe Halo 2 and forward, you cannot have them drive you. I thought maybe if you had set a waypoint, they would drive to it, and you could.
I think you've got that backwards. Starting in Halo 2 is when they could drive you.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, unlike in Halo 2 where they could drive you, in this one you have to drive. You cannot be the one shooting.
You might be right. I thought I had been on the gun while one of them was driving.
No, they won't.
Not.
They won't even get in it.
Lame.
Yeah. And I get it. Like you'd have to teach them how to path their way through.
Yeah.
But they have like grunts and stuff on ghosts, and so surely there's some sort of pathing that they know how to do it at least. But yeah, I
Another
understand
cut
that
feature.
I understand that it's kind of a big task, but I really wish that you could put a waypoint down on the map, get in the gunner's seat, and have the Marine drive you there.
Yeah.
Especially because
Again,
they're not very good at shooting.
Another negative consequence of not having co-op,
Right.
Like, and
yes,
it's not
totally. Absolutely.
It's not as if, like, I think the thing to me that is the most frustrating part of like the lack of co-op is just that, a big open world like this where you can roam around and do whatever content you want. I mean, that's like the perfect scenario for co-op. I mean, this is like the Destiny thing that everyone wants, and they're like, how many times have you heard people say the thing of like, the thing about playing Destiny is I don't really care about playing Destiny. I'm just hanging out with my friends.
Yeah.
But you can't do that in the Halo campaign yet. It feels even more suited to co-op than a typical Halo, which is what's so disappointing about it not having it.
Yeah, and I just like, I'm glad that it's out, but I also like, if they would have not released it and could have not had to focus on like supporting a released game, maybe it wouldn't be May that co-op would be ready for. It would be, maybe it would be March or something. Who knows? But like, I don't know. It doesn't have Forge. I love Forge. Like, I want to, mess around in Forge and make levels and stuff. And
I feel for you, though. I literally care zero about Forge.
Well, I love doing custom games, and so I want to do like Forge custom games. Not that there's any maps in the game to
not with me, apparently.
No. Wait, not with you. What?
I've never been invited to a custom match by Keith Carberry.
Well, it's been a really long time since there's been. That's not true. Halo 3. We did this all the time.
Oh, well, I don't remember. I mean, Halo 3, that was forever ago.
Yeah. It was a while ago, but that I think that speaks to.
Do you want me to say the number of years? Do you want to hear how many? 14.
Yeah, that was my guess. Yeah.
It's a lot of years.
A lot of years. But
we're coming up on the halfway mark of our allotted podcast time.
Yeah.
And I feel like we've gotten a good discussion of Halo out of the way. Do we maybe want to real quick touch upon Yakuza Arrested Development and the too high bad price of desk chairs?
Wait, real quick. Did you fight that sword guy that I was talking about?
I did, yeah.
Okay. How did that go?
And yeah,
for you?
he was like, I think I died a couple times, but yeah, he was like hard, but not that hard. Maybe?
The trick that I figured out is that you can shoot the little thing right at him, and it sticks to him.
Oh,
it sticks to him, and so he runs around, and he is the.
That's good.
Yeah. So Keith just a hot tip.
Sorry. The little thing Keith means is like the tracker, because he's invisible, he has cloaking.
Right.
But you can shoot a tracker that will reveal him.
Very conveniently you find a tracking device.
Right next to the invisible guy.
Right in front. Right at the entrance to where the invisible guy hides out. Yeah, we'll move on to the next thing.
I recently got Yakuza Like a Dragon on sale.
Nice. Bargain hunter.
I got one of those physical copies marked down to $15. And you know what? Day one Steelbook edition, baby.
Nice.
So
don't ever let anyone tell you.
Don't be too jealous.
Don't ever let anyone tell you that you need to buy a game. You need to pre-order a game to get a Steelbook.
For real, yeah. I forget who it was, but I was listening to a game podcast the other day, and someone was like, "I will never learn the lesson that you don't pre-order games." I for some reason I just keep doing it, and I just smugly thought to myself, "Not me, not this person over here. I stopped pre-ordering games about 14 years ago.
When I stopped working at GameStop, I stopped pre-ordering games. It was very convenient when I worked there to pre-order, like, because they don't make you buy it.
No.
You know, like, if you decide you don't want it, then just don't get it. But
Right. But I'll say this, like, I have not pre-ordered a game in, like, over 10 years, and it has harmed me literally zero. So if anyone's out there is like, I know pre-ordering is bad, but I'm just worried I won't get the game or something, do not worry. This doesn't happen anymore.
No, it doesn't. Well, because they sell games digitally now. There's no such thing as not getting it.
Now, Persona 3, that was a game you had to pre-order. Earth Defense Force 4, you had to pre-order that game because every GameStop got 1 or 2 copies of those games. But that doesn't happen anymore.
We should play more Earth Defense Force 5.
Yes, absolutely. We should do that.
We should start a stream called Halo Infinite Co-op Beta. Just play Earth Defense Force 5 and just pretend the whole time like it's Halo.
I mean, oh man, like, hey, if there was a co-op shooter that I would ever consider putting up against Halo, Earth Defense Force it's really up there.
I was listening to the Range Touch like Patreon show, and Cameron Kunzelman said the exact thing that I say every time I play Earth Defense Force, and then do the, like, he was like, every time I play Earth Defense Force, I say it's the greatest game I've ever played, and then I've never finished one. And I was like, that's me. That's exactly what I do. I play it. It's the most fun that I have all year.
Yep.
And then I totally forget to keep playing it.
I was actually, in the past couple weeks, I put a bunch more hours into Earth Defense Force 3, aka 2017, on the Xbox 360.
Is that the one people didn't like, or is that the one before the one people didn't like?
That was the one before the one that people didn't like.
Okay.
Insect Armageddon was the non-numbered one that people didn't like. But yeah, that one I have finished, 3. But the thing is, this it was a very early 360 game back when people had no clue how to do achievements. So that game just has 5 achievements, and the 5 achievements are beat the game on the 5 different difficulty levels, but they don't stack. So
no. Oh
so
no.
I not only do I have to beat this game on hardest, and the actual hardest difficulty, Inferno, but I also have to go back and beat it on easy.
Okay, so I've heard this before. We've talked about this several times, and I remember, people talking about it at various points. The like early achievements for games, and there used to be, back at the height of people kind of caring about their achievement score, there was like, you could very easily find someone recommending a game based on how easy the achievements were. Like, people used to recommend the Last Airbender game because it had a really easy combo, and if you did the combo for long enough, you could just get every achievement in the game. And then
famously,
I remember the actually pretty good King Kong first-person shooter when that King Kong movie came out, where it was like a 5-hour game, and you just got all 1,000 achievements for beating the story.
That rules.
It totally rules. Honestly, more games should simplify their achievements. Give me just have a 10-level game where you get 100 gamer score achievements every level. Like,
every level.
Who cares, right?
I mean, I want a little extra in there, but I don't. When a game is like, you have to be the greatest player at that game to get 1,000 points, like, that's no fun.
Yeah. Have you seen Halo Infinite has like 1,800 total points?
That doesn't surprise me.
I also, this is back when, for a very, very long time, games were 1,000. That's it. You get 1,000.
Yeah.
And then arcade games, which I think the quality of arcade games exploded that category. It does not exist anymore.
Right, yeah.
But they were like 200 max, and you would play these
Yeah.
games. You'd play like 12 hours of a game that like is better than something that you might pay $60 for, and you'd get 200
I put my
points.
entire life into Symphony of the Night for like a month and got 200 points.
Anyway, sorry, yeah, achievement points.
That's about it. Almost because of the quaintness of the achievements in Earth Defense Force 3, I'm totally committed to eventually getting all 1,000 of those points.
The thing that I was going to say was, you hear people talk about back before they understood like really how to do achievements well. But it's like, surely someone would have been like, shouldn't these stack? Like, that has nothing to do with achievements. That's just use your head.
Yeah, totally. Though, what I have come to realize about Earth Defense Force 3 is that, like, the higher difficulties are, like, literally impossible when you start. What you're supposed to do is you play through normal and you get all these guns and level up a bunch, and then it makes you just good enough to start on hard, and then hard gives you even better weapons and even more levels, and then you can maybe go to hardest.
So
That's been kind of fun.
Your plan is to go through all of these, become a literal god, a bug killing god, and then go back to easy and absolutely massacre this invasion.
Actually, no, because the game has 68 levels, and that would be really boring. So I've been playing through a separate brand new file on easy with Cheryl. That's been fun.
Okay. You don't think you could get 68 good levels out of just being a destroyer of worlds?
Well, I think famously to me, these levels are only shooting bugs. So eventually, levels full of just shooting bugs when the bugs can't even remotely harm me, it's got to lose its luster eventually. Earth Defense Force.
I got a strange.
Keith, tell me about the bad too high price of desk chairs.
My desk chair's getting up there in years.
Is it? I thought you just got rid of the chair.
It's that you this is 3 years old.
But wasn't your chair before that like 10 years old?
No, that one was like 4 or 5 years old.
Oh.
But this one, the padding is like losing its plushness, and actually it's kind of always been broken. Like the hydraulic thing that keeps it up has like never really worked.
Right.
Like I'll raise it and then I'll sit down and it'll just immediately lower. Like putting no pressure on it at all. It'll be like, no, I give up.
Yeah.
And you've got to do it like 3 times in a row to get a good seal on it.
Yeah.
And I'm just sick of it. I'm sick of doing that. So I was just sort of casually looking at desk chair, like, gamer chairs or office chairs, the various kinds of chairs that a gamer in an office might sit in.
Right. Who is a manager?
Executive chairs. I just don't understand why chairs are $800, $1,000, $1,200.
Because
$1,400 for a chair. What's happening? This chair was a Christmas gift from Isaac, and it was like $400, and that's like kind of on the lower side for this style of chair. I don't really have anything here except for like what is going on that makes these chairs $700, like on average.
Nothing. It sounds like they're getting the
too
money
high
for them.
Okay, what's a company that makes gamer chairs?
IKEA.
No, I don't think so.
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay. I'm just going to search. I just want to look at some of these gamer chairs.
I said IKEA because I'm sitting in an IKEA chair, and I don't know anything about gamer chairs. This IKEA chair is not very good.
No.
Didn't cost $400 though.
No. What are you sitting in? Does it look like how mine looks?
Oh, it's a Splurgen.
Oh, it's just Spurgen? Okay.
Yeah. It's just a regular ass black
These
office
Best
chair.
Buy ones, these prices are okay. But then again, like I had a one that was kind of an okay price and it is already breaking. So,
Right.
but like their cheapest ones are like 150 and their most expensive ones are like 450. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't have anything here except that I'm mad about it. Like I keep looking at chairs like, that looks like a nice and comfortable chair, and then it'll be hundreds and hundreds of dollars.
Yeah.
I want one that doesn't roll. I'm done with rolling.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't want it to roll. I just want it to plant.
Huh. Because I'm hearing about those rollerblade wheels and going, damn.
Rollerblade wheels?
Putting rollerblade wheels on your chair. You can get rollerblade wheels for chairs. And you know what? Rollerblade wheels are designed to be good at being wheels. And so it makes your chair better.
I buy that for sure.
Yeah. I feel like the wheels on my chair, and I feel like they always get gummed up with all kinds of dirt and hair. And then some of them, it's like
quite
they
had
stop.
that.
Like the wheels on this chair are so gummed up that it takes me sitting in it with my body weight to make the wheels turn when moving the chair. If I just stand up and pull the chair, the wheels will just skid on the carpet.
That's gross.
Yeah.
Mine, I just want everyone out there to know I have clean wheels. They're not gummed up. They roll fine. I mean, it doesn't roll fine. Like, they're shitty, poorly made wheels, but there's nothing in them.
Right.
Like, they're not covered in Kylie's floor sludge.
Oh, when was the last time you flipped your chair over and inspected how
yesterday.
well those wheels roll? Fuck.
Yeah,
Damn
sorry, but
right.
you know the little knob under your chair that adjusts the spring tension for leaning back in the chair? I was adjusting that, so that I had a legitimate reason for being down there. The wheels are fine.
I think I have mine locked right now.
Well, so something else that's happened is my floor is slightly uneven in my office, and one of a couple uneven boards.
So your chair is just constantly trying to roll away.
No, it's more like because the floor is slightly uneven, and because like some of the boards on the floor are like a little like they dip a little bit because they're just old, like really old wood. My desk has a tendency to slightly lean forward, and I think the desk leaning forward and then me leaning forward has like caused some permanent forwardness to the chair that wasn't there a year ago, and so it's become more uncomfortable, and so I just want it to be easier to sit back in. So
Gotcha.
I loosened the tension a bit.
All right, Keith. Well, we're running out of time for really the main event of the podcast.
Oh yeah.
Was there anything you wanted to say about Arrested Development?
Yeah, I can real quick stake my flag here.
Okay.
I've been rewatching Arrested Development. It happens every once in a while.
You've been known to do this.
Show's still really funny. I think it's a shame that no one has just tried to shamelessly rip off Arrested Development, because I think even a shameless ripoff of Arrested Development could be one of the funnier shows to be released in the last 20 years.
I mean, what to you, what about it needs ripping off besides just making a funny show?
I think it's a style of writing comedy that needs to be ripped off. There's not a lot of comedy in the style. Like, not talking plot points. Like, if you want to watch a bunch of rich assholes, I think probably Succession has your number there. But like, I haven't really seen. I watched 2 episodes and I was like, people are like in love with this.
Succession. You mean Empire for white people?
Yeah. Or Boardwalk Empire for other white people, because those
for the
are
same white
the
people.
same people. So there is a constant quality to there's a commitment to wordplay and to callbacks and to like really complicated, like farce that Arrested Development has that you don't see. It's not just jokes, but it's like webs of farce that rely really heavily on wordplay and errors, like comedy errors. So, and it's just every time I watch it, I'm like, there literally is nothing else like this. And then the real thing that I wanted to say is people were wrong about season 4. Every time I rewatch it, I have to reassess it. Season 4 has other problems besides its comedy and the way it was presented, in that it's like one of the more racist seasons.
Oh,
there's some India stuff that doesn't play well, I don't think.
Okay.
And there's some other stuff. There's
show not totally unracist.
Right. Well, you can do a lot to cover your own ass by being like, these are racist people, and so they do some racist things.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's one of those shows that's just supposed to be about horrible people.
And so, but there's a you'll know it when you see it quality, and not everyone has perfect senses on this, and I think everyone's capable of being wrong here too. But there's a sense that you get that some racism is happening because the characters are bad people, and the show is showing you that. And then there's some racism that's happening where you're like, this is a joke that they made about race to be funny, not to show that the characters are bad people.
Right.
And I think there's a very clear line. Like, you can watch Arrested Development season 4 and be like, they want to show like Lindsay being a kind of an asshole while in India, and then also they're telling racist jokes on top of that.
Right.
So there's like 2 levels of it happening simultaneously. Anyway, but apart from that, I think people really bounced off that first season, which I will remind people was basically the first major series to get a like streaming season. It was like the first one. And
because it was sort of for a long time, at least with like especially people our age, Arrested Development was held up as like the comedy that was done the most dirty by its cancellation.
Yes, yeah.
People were always waiting for Arrested Development to come back. It's funny, I showed my mom like the first episode of Arrested Development like years ago, and she turned to me and was like, "Oh, so there's like gotta be a million seasons of this." And I go, "They made 2.5 and then canceled it." And she's like, "Oh my, why is it always this way?"
Yeah. And it's funny because like your mom likes it. My mom loves Arrested Development. Like, and that has to say something about its broad appeal, right? Like, that we both like it and our moms both like it. My dad likes it. Isaac's parents all like it. Like, who was it that didn't like it?
the executives at Fox.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like, I think this show's making fun of us.
It was also from a period of time where the online side of word of mouth really hadn't coalesced in a broad way.
Apart from piracy.
I think like people, like I literally like pretty much didn't even hear about Arrested Development until there were flyers around my school that said "Save Arrested Development."
Right, which is funny because that's a plot point in Arrested Development.
Oh God!
They've got in season 3, they're constantly like winking at the fourth wall to be like, tell people. I mean, not just winking. I think Ron Howard, as the announcer, like literally says, "Please tell your friends." But so I want to say that season 4, it did not get credit for being experimental. And I think the opposite. I think it was panned for being experimental,
right?
Which I think is a shame because it was someone trying out, or there's a lot of people trying out, a new way of telling a traditional season of TV because they were very aware that every single episode was going to be released at the same time.
Yeah.
And because of that, the arc of the season is different than a traditional arc of a season, where the entire season kind of functions as one mega long movie in terms of like not having episodes that have their own rising and falling actions. And instead you have this one mega long streamable thing where jokes kind of don't start to pay off till the fourth episode. And I was watching it, and I was trying to be like, okay, episode 1. I know how this goes. What's funny now? And there was plenty that was funny now.
Yeah.
But I
keep going. I'll be right back.
Okay. But I remember, and I see over and over again, people being like, oh, like I watched the first 3 episodes and there wasn't anything funny, or like I watched 4 episodes and only the 4th one was the funniest one, was like funny finally. But it was funny based on what had already happened in the first. Like the first episode is like a punchline to a future episode, and it's kind of hard to watch. And I get why people are like were like bouncing off it at the time. But I just don't feel like it's that. And again, I just watched seasons 1, 2, 3, and 4. Most of the way through. I'm like halfway through season 4, a little more than halfway. And I just don't really see it. I don't really see what was so different that people were like, oh, you know, my favorite show ever had a 4th season, but it was bad. Like it doesn't. Like I all I can do is understand where people thought the sort of like the source of tension was, like what I can identify, I think, where people were like disconnected from it, but I just really don't understand. I don't think that in 2014 or 13 people were like.
Do you think I haven't seen this? I haven't seen any of the new Arrested Development stuff.
Really?
But do you think it's maybe something to do with just like people out there just not using their heads and thinking that a Netflix revival of a show was like instead of being a new season of the show, like as if it was going to be more like they unearthed the non-existent, never aired 4th season that they made back in 2003 or something.
Yeah, well, because that's another one of the big issues was like all of these people are famous in the show and made so in part by Arrested Development. And so it was really hard to get them all in the same place at the same time. So there was a lot of complaints about like green screen sets and like how the each episode focuses on the timeline of a character, and so it's being told asynchronously. And I think it's fascinating to watch. It's almost like a silk screen of a TV show where you like watch all the blue and then all the red and all and then eventually you're like, oh, look at that picture. And I think that's a really, even if it's a flawed way of watching a TV show, I think it's a fascinating way to watch a TV show. But that's sort of what it is, where it's like this is the Tobias storyline, this is the George Michael storyline, and as it goes, you see all the different points that they intersect. But this was also a function of like they couldn't get everyone because it wasn't a real TV show. Well, it was just the first weird streaming thing anyone ever tried.
This silk screen analogy that you're making, this is directly describing one of our favorite video game stories.
Who?
Sonic Adventure.
Yes, it is the Sonic Adventure of Arrested Development.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh, now I'm sold. Now I got to go watch it.
Yeah, and I'll say this. It's difficult to watch it because they recut and re-edited to the whole season because of these complaints.
Oh, no.
Yes, and so if you go to Netflix and go to Arrested Development Season 4, you will find the new version of it, but they have it hidden away in... like trailers and extras, and the whole thing is in trailers and extras. I just torrented it. I downloaded it offline. Although you've got to make sure it's the one that's only like 15 episodes long. If you're gonna torrent it, there's the one that's like 20 something episodes long. That's the wrong one because also the episodes were longer because people didn't like this either. People were like, oh, the episodes are too long. But the episode length was dictated by the screenplay. And they were like, well, we're not on TV, so we don't have to be exactly 20 fucking minutes. And so some of the episodes were 24 minutes. Some of them were 28. Some of them were 32 because they were dictated by the story. And people were like, why are the episodes all different lengths? We don't like that. And it's like, why don't you like that? Why do you want them to cut stuff to meet some arbitrary length? Why? I just don't get it. And I also think that the bad reaction to season 4 of Arrested Development has led to like a lot of decisions on how you make these kinds of shows and like basically self-imposing the restrictions of TV onto streaming television because people were like, hey, this is 5 degrees different than what I've been fed my entire fucking life. So I pretty much hate it. Yeah, I don't know, but I really recommend giving that 4th season of Arrested Development a shot.
Maybe I will.
There's some really good stuff in there. Some of the best jokes in the whole thing are in season 4. Season 5, part 2, that's a whole other story. But season 4, I'm vouching for season 4. Knowing that it's that it's racist. There's some racist stuff in there, and then knowing that Jeffrey Tambor, who is a main character in it, and Jeffrey Tambor, if you didn't hear a few years ago, towards the beginning of like the Me Too stuff, had 2 people come out and be like, Jeffrey Tambor was extremely gross and weird to me. I don't remember. It's been so long. I do not remember the full story. But he is involved in the show, obviously. And
I just remember hearing that he was very mean, especially to women.
He was mean. He says that he has anger problems. I'm forgetting her. I'm blanking on her name, but she died recently. Jessica Walter, who died recently, who is Lucille Bluth in Arrested Development and was Mallory Archer in Archer.
I didn't know that she died.
She did. She died a few months ago. Just one of the funniest people on the whole planet.
Yeah.
It's very sad. But she had a story about like Jeffrey Tambor like screaming at her like totally fucking insane until she cried. And that's terrible, obviously. So Jeffrey Tambor, another reason to not watch it. He's a terrible person. A lot of the accusations.
I'm being unsold now.
A lot of the accusations that were levied against him were in and around his role playing a trans woman on Transparent.
Oh right, I forgot all about this.
And I will also say there is some weird trans stuff in season 4 as well. I don't remember all of it because I haven't exactly finished, and I don't remember where the plot goes. But his character in that is like, I think accidentally like eating plants that are full of estrogen.
What?
Yeah, it's wild.
Oh my God. All right. Well, I have some unfortunate news, Keith.
What is it?
It seems like we've just hit the 60-minute mark. We've run out of time.
Okay. Well, I'll do whatever you want. So anyway, so those are all the reasons to not watch it. But I will say, none of that was any reason that people were saying not to watch it back when it first aired. They were just like, it's not funny.
That's totally true.
So I think there's plenty of reasons to avoid it if that's what you feel you got to do. But the previous seasons of Arrested Developments do not have otherwise clean slates. So
yeah,
to
true.
be like, I won't watch season 4 because it's problematic is like, I think protesting a bit too much. Like it's you either have to throw it out with the bathwater or not.
I'd have to agree. The early seasons are fairly problematic as well.
Yeah, but I will be back with this once I get through season 5. But my memory is that season 5 part 1 is pretty good, and season 5 part 2 is not pretty good.
That's sad.
Season 4 is so good. I mean, I know that I'm saying it has all of these problems, but wow, it is just such a well-written otherwise show.
Okay.
Definitely get the original cut and not the cut where because so much of the comedy is based on that it's told asynchronously, that it doesn't play when it's told synchronously, chronologically.
So weird.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard at all about. I mean, I didn't really know very much about the format of the show, but I really had not heard about their re-editing of it.
Yeah. So I think at the absolute minimum, it is just like a fascinating artifact of like what people thought streaming television might be, and I think that the reception to it sort of dictated what it absolutely was not going to be. Anyway,
and that is an interesting take on Arrested Development season 4.
Yeah.
And now that we're only 2 minutes over, time to get on to the main topic of this episode.
We are going to keep going. We are going to keep going.
Yeah, I think you misunderstood. I was trying to be like, hey, let's move on to talk about the Beatles.
It's funny that you say 2 minutes over because by my clock, we're almost at 1 3/4 hours.
Well, we had like 40 minutes of not podcasting before the podcast started.
Right. And well, the difference between not podcast and podcast is only in our minds.
I think the point at which I said welcome to the podcast, to me, I feel like is a pretty clean
I just mean what we were doing and saying was not any different than doing a podcast.
Well, no.
Besides
except
some
that we were also
technical stuff.
Yeah, we were doing technical stuff at the same time.
Well,
anywho,
when you're editing this, I would say,
what?
Just, consider not just editing it all out because some of it's pretty good.
But
you've been listening to the Beatles.
What about this other podcast that you made where there's no cold open? Didn't you edit all of that out?
No, I didn't. Because there wasn't a cold open where I thought there was going to be one on your file, which we did cover in that 40 minutes.
I don't know.
So it does have the exact cold open that I think you wanted it to have.
Anyways, there's that new Beatles documentary on Disney Plus.
There is. We talked a little bit about this in an unreleased podcast that will be released by the time you're hearing this. We did a little bit. We talked about the Beatles a bit. You don't remember talking about the Beatles on that one?
I remember talking about the Beatles. I don't remember talking about the documentary.
We talked about it, but I don't think either of us had seen any of it yet.
Oh, okay. I've now seen most of the first episode because it's insanely long.
And I have seen most of the whole thing. I'm halfway through the last episode of 3. It is 3. People keep saying it's 6 hours long. That's propaganda. It's not 6 hours long. It's 7.5 hours. People both involved in and reporting on as news this documentary keep saying that it's 3 2-hour episodes, but it's not. The shortest one is 2 hours and 15 minutes, and the longest one is almost 3 hours. So I don't know why people keep saying that it's 6 hours. It's 7.5 hours.
They must just be repeating something.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say this. It's hard to tell on Disney Plus because Disney Plus kept gaslighting me because on Disney Plus, the playtime on the play bar, it doesn't say amount of time elapsed / total amount of time. It's amount of time elapsed / amount of time remaining. So I can't, there's this point when I was watching last night where I was an hour into the first episode and the bar said 1 hour / 1 hour and 30 minutes. And I went, oh, cool. I'm 2/3 through this 90-minute episode, and I have half an hour left. And then an hour later, I was like, why is the show still going? So maybe like a press release said 6 hours and no one else can verify the amount of time.
But it does say right on it. 100. The first part is 157 minutes. The second part is 174 minutes. And the third part is 139 minutes. Reminder to anyone not willing to do simple math today that 2 hours is 120 minutes. So there's just no world in which I would ever say this is a 6 hour documentary. I think that they are intentionally doing this because some market test that they did said that people will watch a 6 hour documentary, but won't watch a 7.5 hour one.
I think you're totally right about that.
Yeah.
And it is, I mean, I think it's fascinating.
Oh, it's super fascinating.
I love that it exists. I will say it is not the most gripping or action-packed documentary that you could watch.
No.
Sometimes people will say about a documentary, it doesn't matter if you're not interested in the topic, just watch it. It's fascinating. This is very much a thing where I feel like if you do not already care about the Beatles, there's really nothing there for you.
Yeah,
right.
I think you have to be interested in the Beatles. I think that the Beatles are interesting, and that if you're not interested in the Beatles, then you should be.
If you're bored, then you're boring.
If you're bored, then you're boring. Thank you, Harvey Danger, as always.
Thank you, Harvey Danger. Can you just describe this documentary, because it is an unusual premise and format.
Okay, so in 1969, Ringo Starr was going to be the lead in a movie called The Magical Christian.
Was going to be.
Oh, I actually don't know if he ended up being, but he was.
Okay.
It just had not happened yet. I think that he was.
I assumed just your wording of it made me go, wait, did the movie not even happen?
He was slated to be. Slated to be the lead in a movie called The Magical Christian. The filming of which was going to be at Twickenham Studios in London.
Mm-hmm.
And the Beatles were trying to figure out what their next thing was going to be. They had just finished making the White Album. It was tumultuous. They
had just finished Abbey Road.
No, you're wrong. Abbey Road was written and recorded after Let It Be.
What?
Released before Let It Be.
What?
I can't believe you don't know this.
This is shocking to me.
Yes. I can't. Wow. Okay. So.
Wow.
We can touch on that if it comes up. So they had just finished the White Album. It was tumultuous. They're only a little bit off of their longtime manager, Brian Epstein's death. They have been growing apart as a band. They're fresh off of an unbelievable tear in terms of music releases. I mean, it is wild what happened in music through the Beatles from the beginning of the mid 60s to the end of the mid 60s.
It's 1969. For the past 6 years, they've been putting out, or for the past 5 years, they've been putting out 2 albums a year.
Yes,
just like clockwork.
2
basically.
albums of all number ones.
Basically, it's so great. They have they have a whole intro sequence where they're kind of like setting up for you, like, here's the Beatles and their career thus far leading up to this moment. And I love this fucking like black and white interview with like George Harrison or something. It's like, they've probably put out like 4 albums or something, and they're like, do you think you're just going to be the most famous people forever? And he's like, well, it can't keep going on like this.
Yeah. But it did.
I'm like,
it did until now, until the moment the movie starts, basically.
Yeah.
So I think the most important thing to note is that the Beatles have been growing apart creatively and personally for a little while.
Right.
Not just due to the death of Brian Epstein, but in large part. And they do talk about that in the documentary a little bit. And so they are trying to figure out, they basically are like, let's simplify things. They have been getting more and more complicated exponentially until Sgt. Pepper. And then in lieu of extreme complexity in Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and then also a bit for Magical Mystery Tour, they were like, they substituted complexity for sheer length in the White Album, which is a double album.
Yeah.
And they were like, let's simplify things.
Quantity.
We're going to do a TV special and a live show, and we're going to record the album live with no overdubs, which overdubbing and sort of complex studio tricks were not just a major part of the Beatles albums, but they had helped pioneer a lot of this stuff.
I think we might have like skipped over a little bit here, which is that, well, I guess not. Just that they are now like, they have what, like 2 weeks in this movie studio.
Right.
Like they've rented the movie studio for the whole month, but they only need, or for 3 months, sorry, but they only need like 2 months to shoot the movie. So they're trying to write an album on a movie set, an empty movie set, while there is like 8 cameras filming and recording everything they do
Michael
and say.
Lindsay Hogg, who is set to shoot Ringo's movie, The Magical Christian, is now filming a documentary of the making of this live album that is also set to become a TV special. And so that is why there is like 150 hours of footage of this month of the Beatles, is because there was going to be a TV special. And there's famously a documentary that was released in like 72 or something called Let It Be. Is famously a downer. He only had 2 hours. He only had 2 hours to work with. He really focused on the like catastrophe sort of Beatles meltdown angle. And I think that this movie exists to intentionally recolor that, to make it look more like, wow, the Beatles actually were fun and funny and charming and having fun, and not like melting down. And I believe that's probably true also.
There's definitely a little of both here, even in just the first episode that I've seen. Like, you totally get that sense of that.
Not a spoiler. You've seen the worst of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Episodes, parts 2 and 3 are basically nonstop good time.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you totally get the sense that they are fun and funny people and charming, as you say. And while they definitely like, there's like conflict happening, it's not really the conflict of oversized personalities that are all trying to take up the room. It's literally just 4 people that have come to inhabit different ideas of what music they want to make and how they want to make it, and they just can't seem to agree very often anymore on how to go about it.
And for anyone that doesn't know, the Beatles are they grew up in Liverpool together, everyone except Ringo. They were like really good friends.
God, that says so much. I mean, it really is just the Beatles in microcosm. Like, Ringo was literally an afterthought in the band.
Okay, well, I can explain it. I think that they all love Ringo. That is my impression. I think that Ringo is the only one whose relationship was not super complicated, but in like a good way. Right. And, who knows? These are people's lives. I'm sure that there's a famous story of Paul like freaking out at Ringo after the band was already set to be over, because the Beatles had decided that Paul should delay his first solo album so that the Beatles could release Let It Be a little early, and Paul sort of flipped out at Ringo, who went to deliver the message. So like, this is complicated, as complicated as lives are, but Ringo, I think, was sort of like a glue in a way. Like, maybe not the strongest glue in the world, but a glue.
That makes sense, yeah.
I mean, he quit the band and they all like begged him to come back. And I heard a story of George like filled the studio with flowers when he came back.
Yeah, decorated his drum kit, yeah. You kind of, and they even have, I think, some people, like, basically the last bit I saw before I had to stop watching was Paul's what is their name? Shit.
Paul's fiance, Linda Eastman, Linda McCarthy.
Yes, Linda Eastman. Linda Eastman's there, and they have a little bit of her saying about how Ringo's her, favorite Beatle of the ones she wasn't engaged to.
Right.
And, saying, that she feels the most comfortable around him.
She calls him Ring.
She calls him Ring, and the guy talking to him goes, yeah, he has a good heart.
Yeah.
You kind of like, that's kind of the sense I get from Ringo, is it seems like he had, in a lot of ways, the smallest role in the band, but maybe that was just because he was the most okay with getting out of the way. Like in a lot of these session recordings here, like where they're trying to write these songs, he's almost like a human click track. He's literally just sitting in the back by his drum kit and then just like doing a beat when anyone starts to play their guitar.
Yeah. And people talk a lot of shit on Ringo. I'm the Ringo defender. I don't think he's the most talented drummer in the entire world, obviously. A lot of people like to say any drummer could have done. Yeah.
But hang on, though. The real question, was he the greatest drummer in the Beatles?
Also, no. not according to John Lennon, which is one of the funniest, I think, lines. But
I really mean, too, though.
You're just an asshole. Because that question is based on an earlier time when John Lennon said that Ringo is the greatest drummer in the world. So he's on
when John said that earlier.
John is on, he's on record saying Ringo's the greatest drummer in the world. And then when asked about that quote, he then said Ringo's not even the greatest drummer in the Beatles.
Woof.
Yeah. So it's you get it both. He gives as good as he gets.
I actually took a bunch of notes on the episode that I was watching, and I have two separate ones. One says Ringo looks completely miserable the whole time. Can't tell if that's just Ringo.
Yeah,
and then later I say, can't tell if Ringo is on the verge of a panic attack and or breakdown, or if that's just Ringo. He has an extremely hangdog face.
He does have a hangdog face. But let me real quick fill it. I was gonna say, John and George met when they were very young. They were like 14 and 16, and Paul introduces John to George.
I think wait. Oh, okay, I gotcha.
John and Paul meet, then George and Paul meet, and then George and John meet.
Oh, okay. You said John and George met when they were really young. I think you meant John and Paul.
John and Paul, sorry. They're all the same name. And
that's also what's special about Ringo.
Yes, it is. Richard.
No.
I do like when John calls him Richie, though. It's cute.
God, what if they were John, Paul, George, and Richard? Could you get any more British?
So they have a band with Stu Sutcliffe, I believe was his name. They're who is a bassist, and then Pete Best, who eventually was fired. Stu Sutcliffe dies, which is very sad.
Pete Best is the worst.
Pete Best is not. They fire him because he's not a very good drummer, and replace him with Ringo. But yeah, John, Paul, and George knew each other from very young. They sort of they play constantly they have like a residency at this club in Hamburg, Germany. They're so young.
Interesting hearing they were playing lots and lots of shows in Hamburg.
Yeah, they played a ton. They were playing. I think there's a thing that I had not heard before, but there's a little title card that comes up saying that when they were in Hamburg, they were playing for 8 hours a night.
Oh yeah,
unbelievable! God. And they were so young that George got deported for being too young to be there.
Hey man, that's rock and roll, baby.
Yeah. And so it's so interesting. We're older than all of the Beatles in this movie.
I know. Here's a quote I wrote in my notes. We're all 28 now. And this is like, I don't know if it's their manager or what exactly their role is, but yeah, he's speaking with the air of like, things have changed.
Three-piece suit
We've
on?
all grown up. We're 28 now.
Yeah.
We're all 28 now. And then Ringo chuckles and goes, yes, we are. We all are. And I was like, okay, I take it Ringo's a bit older.
I think Ringo was 28. No, Ringo and John are the same age. Paul is like a year and a half younger, and George is like 2.5 years younger.
Right. Yeah.
So George is like 25
baby
or 26
or
during this. And Ringo's the oldest, I think,
yeah.
by a month or like something really
That was
slim.
one of the first things that hit me is like, these guys are so young. And like, because I'm going into it thinking like this is the end of the Beatles, but it is so obvious like they're practically just getting started in terms of musical career and talent and whatever. And obviously they, most of them go on to have one of them didn't go on to have a super long musical career afterwards.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really his fault.
No, not really his fault. Unless you have a really, really warped view of fault. Well, he shouldn't have said that thing about Jesus in 1966.
Was that really like...
Mark Chapman, the lunatic who murdered John Lennon, was a big Beatles fan who converted to Christianity in the late 70s, and him and his church joked about killing John Lennon because of his 1966 statement that the Beatles are bigger than Jesus.
Right.
So that's why you would have to have a really warped view of fault. Anyway, they get together in this movie studio. Paul doesn't like it right away. No one really likes it there.
Yeah.
They're dealing with the cameras in front of their face.
Yeah. I can't believe how well they seem to deal with the cameras in front of their face. Though, I mean, maybe it's the cammers, I guess.
Yeah. I mean,
but like,
they've at this point, they might be in their late 20s, but they've been the most famous people in the world for like 7 years.
Yeah. I think, at some point I realized like, oh, this might actually be toned down from what they had been dealing with like just a couple years ago. There's so many people around. Like, we've tried to do video game podcasts where there was one other person in the room hanging out, and that was really hard.
Yeah.
And like they've got like all of these like literal fucking like when I say like a slick looking businessman type in a suit, I mean it is like the epitome of that. Like people.
Oh, you're talking about that's George Martin. That's their producer George Martin, who they've known for a very long time at this point.
Wait. George Martin.
Yes. Sometimes called the fifth Beatle. One of the many people sometimes called the fifth Beatle. But he's George. That's George Martin, yeah.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. You said, as soon as you said slick looking businessman, I was like, George Martin. That's George Martin. I don't think the only other person that you might describe, he's more of a smarmy looking businessman.
Sorry, I didn't realize you literally knew the name of every single person in the room.
I do know the name of a lot of those people, yeah. The guy that looks kind of like Eric Wareheim, his name's Mal Evans. He was murdered by the police in 1976. Yep. Some people say it was suicide by cop, but I believe that John Lennon's...
What was the name again?
Mal Evans. He looks like Eric Wareheim.
I don't know who that is.
Eric from Tim and Eric?
This okay.
He's the guy that's playing the anvil when they rehearse Maxwell's Silverhammer.
Yes, that was really cool. Little, just getting to see like a essentially live performance of Maxwell's Silverhammer was really cool.
Which is, I think, such a funny, weird song. That's the sort of thing that Paul does that the rest of the Beatles hate. They're like, why does he do all this like weird old music? George Harrison one time described them as his fruity songs. That he likes to do.
They're so fun.
It's and I don't know Paul's head, but it's got to be a joke, right? A cheerful little song about a serial killer, like
yeah,
it's got to be a joke. Like they're all so funny. It's weird that they don't get the joke that Paul does when he's doing these weird songs. I don't know. It's fine. Um, uh, the when you the only other person in the room I think that maybe would have been the slick businessman might have been Michael Lindsay Hogg, the director, but he's not really slick as much as he's smarmy.
I think you were right the first time. You got it immediately.
Yeah.
But yeah, just like people they're the Beatles are sitting there and they need to write an album.
They have 3 weeks.
2 weeks. They have to write
3.
and rehearse.
Right, for a live show.
For a live show. Yeah, I think that was the bit we left out, was like the Beatles have stopped touring at this point for what, 2 years?
Yeah, 2.5,
3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. But they had done one small show for like a television spot like the year before, and they had all really liked it. So they were like, hey, our next album, let's do it like a live album. Like they were even saying it might be a live album. Like maybe we'll play the album live, and the live recording is the album.
Yeah. And that ends up happening. That's what they do.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I guess I haven't listened to the Let It Be album very much.
It's a funny album. It's hard to place it in the Beatles library, but it does absolutely and undeniably have some of their best stuff on it. But it's
one of the most fun parts that I saw is like you watch like Paul, like it says, you get like the text on screen, like Paul is like getting concerned about, lack of songs, and he's trying to come up with song ideas, and he's literally just noodling on his bass and like mumbling sounds into a microphone and just changing it a little and a little and a little until it becomes Get Back. And like, it's just so wild.
It's unbelievable.
To, like, in here, like, George Harrison comes in the next day and goes, oh, do you want to hear a song I wrote in my room last night? And they're like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then he's like playing I Me Mine, just like they keep just like, oh, I just came up with this a minute ago. And it's like now one of the most famous songs ever. Yeah.
There's a famous story about Paul McCartney who ran into Dustin Hoffman in was it in Nigeria is where he was recording Band on the Run, which is a phenomenal Paul McCartney and Wings album, which is the band that he was in after the Beatles with his wife, Linda. And right. I love Wings. Wings is so good. There's some really, really phenomenal Wings song. But he's having dinner with Dustin Hoffman, who was there for a movie. And Dustin Hoffman's like, so, Paul McCartney, how do you write songs? And he's like, I don't know, mate. And he's like, no, really. But like, can you just write a song about anything? And he's like, I guess, yeah, I mean, sure. And so he gets like a newspaper, and he's like, it's like a newspaper about Picasso, like a story about a Picasso that Dustin Hoffman had read in the newspaper.
Okay.
And he was like, can you write a song about this? And Paul's like, I'll try. And then he just does. It's called Picasso's Last Words. It's on the Wings album, Band on the Run. And it's like one of their big songs, and Dustin Hoffman loves it.
Nice. Yeah, that's fun. And separately from this, I think, because I've probably been doing this because everyone's been talking about the Beatles because of this documentary, but I've been listening to all of their albums in release order.
Oh.
And I just finished the album The Beatles, commonly referred to as the White Album, last night.
Okay, so you're pretty far through.
Yeah, so I've been listening to a lot of the Beatles. And it is, I mean, they're all like, they were obviously never bad or anything, but It is amazing how, to me and my tastes, it's like a light switch flips when they get to Revolver.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think you were tweeting something to this effect.
Yeah. So if you are not super familiar with the Beatles catalog, but you're willing to have your mind totally blown by this, the albums Help, Rubber Soul, and Revolver were released within the same 365 days, and they are musically from different universes.
I'm not sure I fully agree, but
I totally are. I mean, I mean, it's not literal. I'm not being literal, but I'm not being that hyperbolic. I don't think it. really feels like the Beatles were the most famous band in the world in a decade where what rock and roll meant radically changed, and they were at
they were
the
there
crest
the
of
whole
that
time.
wave. Yes. Like, it is unbelievable to like listen to the music that was in the top of the charts in like 67 when the Beatles are doing Sgt. Pepper, and hear like, oh, other bands are still doing stuff that sounds like it's from Help.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And so like musically they're not just following the curve, they were the curve.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and it's even fascinating because a lot of their early albums, they do a lot of covers of earlier rock songs that they are fans of. And it's really interesting because that stuff sounds even further, I mean, literally back in time from like this kind of spectrum of rock music. And so it's almost like the Beatles are giving you a little taste of like where they come from as a band.
Right. Well, and so this is where it becomes really where the business of the Beatles really comes into it, because I think like the Beatles were producing, they were creating obviously, but they were also like they're being manufactured by their label as like, we have found like the next big white band to play black music to white people.
Right. Yeah, totally.
This is like, stretching back to Elvis and before, this is like the big moneymaker for an industry is like, can we get someone to play black music to white kids that their parents will allow to happen or whatever?
Yeah.
And that's the Beatles. Like, they are playing like, they're playing the music that they liked, right? Like, it's not like the Beatles are part of this conspiracy to trick, white kids into listening to black people's music.
But yeah, like their opening number on like their 1966 tour is just a Chuck Berry song.
Right. And I like a lot of their covers. They cannot play Chuck Berry. They're bad at it.
Oof.
I do not think that they have ever been able to play Chuck Berry songs. Every time they cover Chuck Berry, I'm like, this is not... You think this is better than it is, I think.
I don't know a lot about Chuck Berry. I will say that I think the Beatles version of rock and roll music sucks.
Yeah. And the thing that happens, right, is that like they get so huge, so astronomically huge, and at the same time, they had a lot of experience songwriting because they had been songwriting way before the Beatles existed as a band that anyone was interested in. And so because of this, they evolve into pretty competent songwriters pretty quickly. And all of a sudden you have these albums where their songs are replacing those cover songs and they're still selling out. But they essentially had signed up to be a music factory, right? And so you get this sort of thing where at the same time as they have this absolutely outrageous string of creative success, they're still kind of being treated like a boy band music farm.
Right.
And this is how you get like some of the greatest albums in the world being released in the same year and a half, like 3 or 4 albums in a row. And I think it's also how you get to the point where only a few years into being a band that was releasing music, they're already like dead, tired, sick of it.
I cannot imagine. I can't imagine like having to work that, like, to be all the while they were putting out like their first 6 albums. They were also touring like the whole time.
Yeah.
And so they're like touring constantly. They're putting out albums constantly. They're constantly doing radio interviews and television interviews and interviews because they're the most famous people on the planet. And they're in their fucking they're children.
They're children. They're children. I mean, they were the most famous people in the world when they were like 22, 20, and 19. Like,
yeah, it's so
crazy.
much, and it's also like not surprising that, as soon as they don't, they, like you say, they kind of went through this sort of like music factory sort of thing, And then it's like they don't have their manager anymore. That was kind of like, I think, their touch point into like that world. And it's almost like it basically just seems like the Beatles had changed so radically at that point. Like they're definitely not the Music Factory boy band, but none of them can seem to agree on what they are now.
Yeah.
And like this seems to me where the Beatles kind of fall apart.
Right. Well, it makes a lot of sense when you go, okay, so none of them can agree where they need to go, and so they go to Get Back, the Get Back sessions, which is literally and thematically a rewind button on their style. Like they don't exactly go back to doing sort of like, you know, late 50s, early 60s pop hit kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But they do go back to more to like simple music played live, very blues, you know, adjacent. Where it's almost like if we can't move forward, we'll move back. We'll like, you know, they'll get back to where they once belonged, Kylie, is what they'll do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, wow. Oh, my God. That's the name of the documentary.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah,
no, like, and that, you know, meanwhile, yeah, they seem to be, the thing they seem most able to agree on in this documentary here is, like, they're interested in
that Paul McCartney's annoying.
Is that Paul McCartney's annoying? Absolutely. Oh, okay. All right. Wait. Hang on. This is actually my favorite part of the whole thing.
Okay.
I love Paul McCartney.
By the way, I'm a big Paul McCartney guy.
I hate the man. I think he is extremely talented.
I don't even hate the man. I
Is this story about him beating his wife?
No, that's not true. Who?
Paul McCartney.
No, I've never heard this in my life. The only Beatle that I've ever heard a story about any hitting of a woman is that John Lennon's ex-wife said that when they were still dating, he slaps her in the face, and she broke up with him for like 3 months. And then he was like, I promise I'll never do it again. And then her and Yoko both say, as far as we know, he never did it again. John Lennon, very complicated person, seems like kind of an asshole, had a really hard time in his life, it seems. Very complicated. I won't say anything except for that. As far as anyone's ever said, I'm pretty sure he hit his wife while they were dating, and then that's it.
John, you're saying?
John, yeah. I don't know any other hitting stories from the Beatles.
But yeah, sorry. Here's a funny moment that involves Paul getting owned, which is that, you know, they're trying to write these songs, and Paul's essentially like Paul is getting upset because he feels like it's not working right, and like he just feels like the way they're trying to write the songs is bad or something. Like he just starts like getting on everyone's case about like, we're not doing it right. But also he starts complaining, like he's doing that thing of going like, why do I have to be the boss? How come I'm the only one who ever gets up and bosses people around? How come when I start bossing people around, no one has my back on this, or something like that?
I think that this is a more complicated than you're giving it credit for.
You think so?
I think so. I mean, I can give you my read on it. You're not like, it's not like you're way off base or anything. Like, this is what's happening. I think that the Beatles are under a lot of this is where I was headed about like the boy band Song Factory thing.
Oh, I mean, they're certainly under a ton of pressure.
They're under a ton of pressure that doesn't exist. That's the important part. This pressure is not real. They don't have to be doing any of this, but they all deeply feel like they have to be doing it.
Right, but that they also, except for Paul, maybe seem to also feel they deeply don't want to be doing it.
Right. Well, so there's two main dynamics I think that are at play here. Or maybe there's 2.5, and the half is that I think that during this time John Lennon is struggling with a heroin addiction.
Okay.
So that is one part of this. Another part of this is that for a really long time there's been a big sort of competitiveness, a sometimes friendly, but maybe increasingly becoming less friendly competitiveness between John Lennon and Paul McCartney. John Lennon's tenure as de facto leader sort of eroding by Rubber Soul, and Paul McCartney's tenure as de facto leader sort of taking off, especially with Sgt. Pepper.
Yeah, that's a bit that I was unclear on. Like, I wasn't really clear, but like, yeah, John was like the lead of the band sort of for those early years.
But it really had not been the case for a while. Like, I think that with the exception of the White Album, where John had written a ton of songs on their meditation retreat in India, Paul
just learned about the meditation retreat in India today.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Here's a big thing. I've been a fan of the Beatles since I was a kid.
Hey, me too.
Not the same way, though, right?
No, obviously not in the same way.
I'm just saying this is why I know about this stuff and why I'm surprised that Kylie didn't, is because I've been, like, I used to listen to the Beatles. I remember when Wikipedia was, like, new and, like, reading about the Beatles on Wikipedia.
That's funny. No, I mean, like I've said before, kind of my only interfacing with the Beatles growing up was having that best of album, The Beatles One.
Yeah, One. That was huge. Yeah, I had that too.
I think... I don't know if it was literally... Like, I know the premise of the album is supposed to be this is all of their songs that were number one hits, but I don't know if that's literal or if
No, it's close to literal, but it's not literal.
Right. I will say, though, if you're not familiar with the Beatles and you want to get a good overview, it's a great overview of the Beatles because you totally get that sense of the transformation. The first tracks on those albums sound nothing like the last tracks or even the middle tracks on the album.
Yeah.
So like that was kind of interesting though I'd never looked up that much about the Beatles, I feel like I got so much of a sense of their musical catalog just from that one album.
Yeah.
And it does, I mean, having just come off of listening to like 8 Beatles albums in a row, I have to say there aren't really that many songs I would call bad, but there certainly are a lot of forgettable songs. And especially a lot of those early albums are like,
a lot of forgettable
the thing
songs,
about like imagining a guy.
Yeah.
The Beatles love to imagine a guy, but more and more in their earlier years, they were imagining a girl and then imagining how she was slighting them in some way.
Right.
Like,
well, it's a bunch of heartbreak love songs.
Yeah. They are known for, doing a bunch of like love songs. It's just, it got so grating after a while.
Yeah.
It was like, every song was like, why can't you treat me as well as I treat you? How come you're leaving me and you don't care about my feelings?
Yeah.
A song I really loved a song I really loved as a kid was Ticket to Ride, which is a sad breakup song. It's funny to think about. I was always just a miserable person or something that this song really spoke to me. It's this great like somber song about this guy's girlfriend is leaving him and she has a ticket to ride, presumably on a train. But then they just have like this bridge or whatever that's like, I don't know what her fucking deal is. Shouldn't she consider my feelings in all this? And I'm like, she's disrespecting me by leaving me like this. Like, dude, it's in the song. She feels like she's trapped with you. And you're just like, why isn't she considering my feelings?
If you talk to Paul McCartney these days and you're like, so, like, why did you, like, what? Tell me about the early Beatles. He just basically goes, like, we were trying to fuck. We wrote a song, we wrote a bunch of songs about girls because we were trying to have sex with girls.
And let me tell you, it worked.
It sure did. So it's sort of, it all makes enough sense. Why are you singing about girls? And it's like, well, because we want... Why are you always getting broken up with in your songs? And it's like, because we're available to girls.
Okay, I know. But it's not just about breakup songs that I'm getting at. It's specifically that, like, there's always some way in which the girl is slighting them,
right? There's a little
even a way that
flavor
the
to
song's
it.
Not about, or there's even and there's also one that is written from the perspective of a man talking to another man who's like, hey, you better treat your girlfriend better or I'm gonna take her from you.
Yeah.
Like eminent domain or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess my feeling on this is that that's just the most standard kind of song from like 1955 to now.
It just really grated on me. It's like it got extremely old.
It's great. Yeah. Well, I think that's why, to me, the most interesting thing about the Beatles is the transformation away from that.
Totally.
Like I like some of those songs. Like I think "Help" is a great song. I think "A Hard Day's Night" is a great song.
Great song.
One of the one of the best first 3/4 of a second on an album.
In
Hard
which
Day's
song?
Night is the lead off on that album, and it starts with that bang, that big chord.
Yeah.
And I love that. But yeah, like I think with those early albums, for me, it's about like picking out the good ones, and
Right. Yeah.
and later it's like this whole thing basically is the good one to me. Like
Right.
like
Yeah.
I don't think I like.
To me, I do feel like I want to pick the good ones out of Help, whereas when it comes to the White Album, it's like taking the thing as a whole to me is like part of it.
Yeah.
You shouldn't pick things out of the White
I
Album.
agree. Maybe the White Album is the one that I most disagree.
Maybe skip Revolution 9.
From between Rubber Soul and Abbey Road, and Let It Be. I think that the White Album is the one I'm most likely to skip a bunch on, just because it's so long. And it's
so long by Beatles standards, but it's not that long. Right?
Well, I think that that's one that could have done with some editing. Like, do we need piggies?
I think maybe we needed piggies.
Okay.
Did we need Wild Honey Pie in addition to the other song on the album,
Honey Pie?
Honey Pie?
Well, one of them is the really weird one, and then one of them is nothing.
Yeah, so the really weird one is Wild Honey Pie.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was pretty sure.
Yeah. So I just imagine them being like, this is my new song, Honey Pie. And then someone else goes, but I already have one named Wild Honey Pie. And they're like, well, we can't agree. They both just have to go on.
Yeah, I don't know where we were in terms of the documentary. Oh, I was trying to explain the relationship, the triangle that was sort of going on.
Oh, right.
So this is the Paul. This is the Paul and John thing.
I was talking about that moment where Paul gets up and is like,
right,
why am I having to be the boss?
And sort of the thing with Paul and George, like these three, relationships change, but I think that like they would all consider each other basically like brothers, basically. And John says as much. Paul says as much about George several times, but including after he dies, he like says that he's sad that George is gone and he was his baby brother. It's very sad. And what's happened is that John and Paul have their little competition to see who can write the most and the best songs. They write one song for Ringo per album, and they let George have 2 songs that he writes. And
woof.
Yeah. Well,
they let George have 2 songs.
Well, he was young and he didn't have the songwriting experience that they had. And they're really just pumping out some of the best songs of all time.
It's true, yeah. And I was reading on Wikipedia that was filling in the gaps. It's like, this is why George writes "I Me Mine" in his room at night after the recording session, is because he's like essentially writing these songs almost in secret, because
constantly writing songs
because he feels like he can't just like bring one of his songs to the band and have them be like, yeah.
Oh, and
he goes, oh, what do you think about this? It's called "I Me Mine." And he plays this little bit, and it's like incredible and beautiful. And Paul's immediately just like, are the word choices right though? Should we?
Okay, here it is. Here's the thing though.
Okay,
so George, I think especially on the White Album, he has "While My Guitar Gently Weeps," which is just one of the best songs that there is.
The best song, yeah.
It's so great, and if you have the chance and the will to listen to the Escher demos, The Escher demos are when they come back from India. They show up with all the songs they wrote on their retreat, and they play them at George's house in his basement to his reel-to-reel, and they're just
Those are the
almost
Escher
the
demos?
entirety of the White Album played, double tracked with an acoustic guitar. And his Escher demo of While My Guitar Gently Weeps is, I think, maybe the best version of it.
Cool.
Just him and a guitar strumming, and it's extremely good.
Those are on Spotify, by the way.
Oh, great.
There's like a super deluxe version of the White Album that has those. And what's really fascinating about them is, well, I think some of them just say like Escher demo, and some of them say what number the take was.
I love those, yeah.
I think it's good. They have Hey Jude take 1, which is really cool. They also have a long take 48, which I'm like, woof.
Wow.
That sounds that they
were
hard.
meticulous.
They really were.
But I really recommend the Escher demo of While My Guitar Gently Weeps. It has a little bit of different lyrics. The last verse is slightly changed, and I actually vastly prefer the original last verse, which was basically the theme of the song is colored by this last verse, which it goes like basically all of these people, in the streets. I think it's partially about. They wrote a lot of songs that were sort of about the American Civil Rights Movement. Paul McCartney at various points has said that Blackbird is also about the American Civil Rights Movement. But he basically goes, people in the streets, fighting for what they believe in, and I'm just sitting at home, like doing nothing.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that's the end of the original last verse of While My Guitar Gently Weeps. And instead, they change it to almost nothing. Like, they change it to something, like, it doesn't really say anything. I can't remember. They change it to... oh, no. Okay. So... sorry, I clicked on a weird one that has multiple versions of the lyrics written in. So that was not helpful. I look at you all, see the love that's there sleeping while my guitar gently weeps. I look at you all, still my guitar gently weeps. The original cut was, I look at you all. I look from the wings at the play you are staging while my guitar gently weeps. Look at you all as I'm sitting here doing nothing but aging. Still my guitar gently weeps. He's that. Removed from the world, like looking at it.
Great song. You know what introduced me to that song?
Who?
The Beatles Rock Band.
Really?
Yeah. Did you ever play that?
No, I never did.
I don't remember how much you like Rock Band.
I do like Rock Band, but it was getting a little long in the tooth at the time.
Yeah. Like I bought the Beatles Rock Band when it came out, then traded it in, then bought it again later when it was much cheaper. And I felt like that was a good decision. It's just a really fun campaign, so to speak, because they do it in chronological order. And the early ones, it's like just boring rock, like mannequins, like animatronics on stage style Rock Band. But once they get to the non-touring years, then each song gets its own like sort of psychedelic kind of, they call dreamscapes. And so each one has their own tailored little bit, and it's really fun.
I like that. But okay, so George writes that song. He's writing better and better songs as time goes on. And then culminating with his best two songs, literally his best two songs are on the final album that they write, Abbey Road, second to last one they release. But he has Here Comes the Sun and Something in the Way She Moves, which are on Abbey Road, which are just unbelievably good songs. And
Here Comes the Sun, the number one most played Beatles track on Spotify.
Really? Well, it's so good, and he deserves it. Obviously, but they didn't respect him as a songwriter because for a while he wasn't, and maybe wasn't trying to. And there came a time, I think, when he had agreed, he had he had realized that it was time for him to be more creatively involved with the band, and it was a fight to get that to be recognized by John and Paul. And I think there's a part of it that, like, telling him what's good and bad about his songs was part of Paul. This is total projection. Was part of being like, you're part of the process. This is the process.
Right.
Like, you can see Paul and John telling each other, no, that bit's no good. That bit's good. That should be there. This should be there.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And but there's this thing about George where he's Paul
the little
knows
brother.
that it's like a tender relationship and that there's soreness there. And I don't think George is ready to forgive for like how hard he's had to work to get them to recognize his songwriting. And Paul is aware of that. And so this is going back to this scene that you were talking about. What I see when I see Paul like sort of digging that hole is he's trying to say anything he can to be like, I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I'm not trying to seem like an asshole. And he just can't not. Like, he's trying, he really is trying not to be an asshole by saying I'm not trying to be an asshole. And it's just having literally the opposite effect. And I think there's like almost like a panicking, like he's trying, like the Beatles are wet soap that he's trying to hold together. And it's like him squeezing too hard is like making it fly out of his hands.
Right. The bit I was trying to get at was this little exchange between, I think it was slightly earlier in the documentary, is between Paul and George. Well, they're all trying to do this like writing a song together thing. Like we'll all figure out, I think they're all trying to find a song, and Paul is like, but how can we find the next thing if we don't start with one thing? Or it's like literally this kind of argument about like the process of writing the song or something. And he starts going on about like, I don't want to be the boss, and I feel like no one has my back about this. And he says to George, he's like, I this keeps happening. I can feel myself annoying you. I'm talking to you, you're getting annoyed. And almost like this is like practically like a comedy bit, like as if this was scripted. And George goes like, no, you're not annoying me. You don't annoy me anymore. It's like that's practically an Arrested Development joke. Like, you don't annoy me anymore is really telling. Good. But also they have this I wrote this down. George looks at him like kind of and says almost really sincerely, he goes like, I don't mind. I'll play whatever you want me to play. I'll play whatever you want me to play, or I won't play at all if you don't want me to. Whatever it is that will please you, I'll do it.
Yeah.
But I don't even think you really know what that one is. And I'm like, oh my God, I thought John was the Beatle who was murdered. Paul is bleeding out on the floor right now.
Yeah, well, it's the funny thing is, because it's a lie. Like, George is lying. And this, not on purpose. Like, I think that he is sort of saying, like, I don't care anymore. Just tell me what to do so that we can get it over with. And this is part of the thing where it's like, Paul knows that he's walking a tightrope with George, and he doesn't know how to navigate it, but he does know that he really, really wants to finish this album on time.
Right.
And so he's like, well, I have to cross the tightrope, because in his head, not crossing it isn't an option. And then he's false because it was a tightrope. And he's a musician, not a tightrope walker. Like, when I see it, I see that I've been on both sides of that, which is why I think I empathized with Paul of being like, I know that it's sort of like, it is sort of
I do totally get where he's coming from.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it sounds insane to compare Run Button to the Beatles.
Yeah.
But even just in like, that it is insane. But like, even just in like trying to, you and I work together over the years and collaborate on this thing, even that has like brought up a lot of emotions and stuff that I see in this documentary. And I'm like, oh yeah, I know that feeling.
Yeah.
I don't know the feeling of trying to write a song while Yoko Ono is reading a newspaper next to me with her hair in her face.
I don't think
one
Yoko
I haven't
was
done.
that annoying in this.
No, she wasn't. But it was like, because I was mentioning before, like, you know, I can't believe they're like trying to write this album surrounded by cameras, surrounding by people milling about and talking to each other. And also Yoko is just sitting there like sitting there with the band like she's one of them. And I get that this is like, I take it to understand this is something of John and Yoko making a statement or whatever. Am I wrong in that?
Yoko has said before, I mean, I think John was trying to check out of the Beatles, kind of.
Right.
And I think that he had a very whirlwind thing with Yoko. Mm-hmm. According to Yoko, and I believe according to some of the Beatles later, that he basically made her be there.
That does not surprise me at all.
And so there's I don't know. I genuinely don't know, but not like she didn't want to be there and he was forcing her to be there, but more like come with me to the thing.
Right, exactly. Like that was my impression essentially. Like
this is a sore subject because of the kind of outrageous anti-Yoko sexism around the Yoko Ono broke up the Beatles thing, which I think is a fine thing to believe if you want to be wrong. But there's the way that people behave about her is outrageous and horrible.
It was totally outrageous. And I am certainly not here to trash Yoko Ono in any way. And I don't even know that much about her. But I guess that was kind of what was so striking and almost funny to me about it, was not knowing anything about her other than that people hate her.
Have you seen
blame her for breaking up the Beatles?
Have you seen George Quit yet?
No.
Oh, it's probably like right after where you stopped.
Okay,
George
gotcha.
George. There's one tiny. Paul gives George one note on how to do something differently, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was very small, and the camera lingers on his face, and it's blank, but you can tell that there's something there, and the song ends, and he just very calmly goes, I'm leaving the band. I'm leaving the band. And they're like, oh, like when? Like in 2 weeks? And he goes, no, right now. I'm leaving now.
Right now.
And
I'm taking my extremely luxuriant fur coat with me.
What a plush fur that looked like.
It makes the he looks so misshapen while he's wearing it. He's got these like tiny little twig legs and this giant puffy coat, and it almost makes him have like the dimensions of the Beatles in the Yellow Submarine movie.
That's
like,
really funny. Yeah. I kind of don't want to spoil what happens because it's a very interesting documentary in that the original movie that this movie is kind of trying to put in the dustbin of history. It is right that if you draw a circle around the dramatic action, that's it. And there isn't really a dramatic thing that happens for the rest of the 5 hours of the documentary. It is still really excellent to watch, but like really what you're watching for the rest of the movie is the Beatles kind of having a good time mostly.
Very cool. I will say about this documentary, there is a lot of points throughout, and they like give you a little message preparing you at the beginning. There's a lot of instances throughout the movie where there's audio of what they're saying. There's not video, so they just pair the video with just a shot that they feel like is what they say representative of what was happening when that thing was said.
Yeah,
I am staggered by the amount of editing work must have gone into this thing.
Yeah.
Having tried to just edit one of our stupid rambly podcasts, I do not know how you take 3 weeks of these mumbly mouthed Liverpool motherfuckers.
It is
in
150
a
hours, and about half of it has video.
Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild. So George quits. He quits for 5 days. If I can spoil something there's one minor thing that I'm not even going to bother asking. I'll just definitely spoil it. And it has to do with Yoko, which is when George is gone, they're kind of all in their feelings about it. And they have this like wild noise making session. And this is a sort of thing like her screaming into the microphone is sort of like a famous anti-Yoko thing.
Oh, okay.
She's screaming into the microphone while Paul is intentionally cranked up his amp and is creating a god-awful feedback like with his bass guitar. John is just like strumming nothing. And Yoko is screaming, and I think Ringo is just like banging tambourines or something. And it's like they're intentionally making a cacophony, like to release tension.
Oh my God, Keith, this is the Final Fantasy X laughing scene of the Beatles. Maybe you don't remember that scene well enough.
I do. It's when you meet that girl, right? No, it's before the sports match.
It's after the sports match.
After the sports match. I don't remember the context for it.
Yeah, it's okay. It's just sort of like a scene that to me, many people is famous for being nonsensical and just like ridiculous and cringy, and to me is famous for being one of the most misinterpreted cutscenes in video games.
Right. Yes. So this is extremely misinterpreted. And they do it several times. They do this noise-making thing several times. They really feel terrible that when George is gone. Like, there's a moment where John is late the day after George quits, and they don't know if he's going to show up because they can't get him on the phone. And there's...
Does cell phone battery die?
Yeah, cell phone battery died.
Hate that.
And there's just a really, really long shot on Paul's face, and he is visibly shaking with sadness. Like, no one has ever looked like they were holding back as many tears as he was holding back. Like, they're trying to explode out of him, and instead he just goes like, and then there were two, because it's just him and Ringo sitting in the studio by themselves. It's so sad.
Yeah. And this is a little bit after this last thing I want to bring up, but it like adding to this pile of like what they had to deal with is like this whole time they seem to just be struggling to figure out how to continue being a band. And they're trying to do like, oh, wouldn't it be fun if we like did a show? Like the special was like, we're just a band in like a dingy bar and there's like 10 people there. And then someone's like, but you're the Beatles. You have to do the greatest show
that's Michael Lindsay
that's ever
Hogg.
happened because millions of people have their hearts with you.
That's Michael Lindsay Hogg. He's the director, which is why he keeps wanting them to go to Libya and to an amphitheater. And it's like, it doesn't make any sense that he wants that, except that he's trying to turn it into a movie.
Yeah, that it would look sick.
It would look sick on a movie. You know, and they're like, but we just want to play, man. Like,
yeah, right.
At some point they get to the point where, so it becomes a joke how often he brings it up. Like, it's gotta be Peter Jackson making fun of this guy. I don't know what people think of Michael Lindsay Hogg, but
wait, this is a quote though. What about a hospital? But I don't mean for really sick kids. I mean for kids with broken legs.
He wants you. He want you to be seen doing something nice, but like not gross.
By the way, that's another Arrested Development line.
Yeah, it totally is. Michael Lindsay Hogg is definitely the most Arrested Development character out of these people.
That's funny.
But yeah, it becomes a joke how he keeps
entertainment package.
Every time he keeps bringing up Libya, and every single one of them, every single time is like, absolutely no, we're not going to Libya. And because the first time it comes up, he's like, what if we do something overseas? And Paul goes, oh, George already said he doesn't want to travel for this, so no, we're not doing it. And it's like Paul answers for George a couple other times where he's like, no, George said he doesn't want to travel, so we're not traveling. And then they start just being like, no, we're not going to Libya. It doesn't make any sense. It's like, we're gonna do our first a live show in 3 years and you want us to do it to like people who don't understand the words to our music. And then Michael Lindsay Hogg is like, well, we'll rent a cruise ship and we'll ship 3,000 Englishmen with you and fill the amphitheater with Englishmen.
Yeah,
and they're like, with whose money? Oh, this is. I'm sorry that I'm spoiling this because this is a good line, but I have to. It was with whose money? And someone's like, well, you're the Beatles. And then George goes, they won't even send us a free Fender amp.
Sorry, another kind of in this same bit here. Another really funny line from John is the director. I think it was the director says, Russia wanted an English audience, and John goes, "Oh, Russia, that'd be great." No, that's Ringo's code name. He's Russia. So funny.
Yeah, I genuinely don't know what the code name thing is. He tries it a couple other times.
It comes up. I'm imagining that they are trying to find a way to be able to talk to each other about each other in front of the cameras without it being something that can be used for the documentary.
Maybe, but that's Michael Lindsay Hogg, and he's saying it right in front of the cameras. He's the director.
Well, yeah, I guess so.
I mean, they certainly, you'll find this out later, but they certainly don't have any problems hiding hidden mics where the Beatles don't expect there to be mics.
Oh, God.
But yeah, so just so that you have an idea of where this ends up going, George Harrison basically says, I'm not going back to Twickenham. And so they rush to finish the Apple Studios that they've been working on. And the second 2 episodes both take place inside the Apple Studios. And it's like, pretty lighthearted. Their old friend, Billy Preston, who I love, shows up. They met Billy Preston because he was in Little Richard's backing band when Little Richard played in Hamburg, and the Beatles would open for Little Richard. And he shows up, and they need a keyboard player, and they've been talking about it for hours, needing a keyboard player. And Billy Preston's an excellent pianist, and he just shows up to say hi, and they're like, you want to be on the record? And I think he ends up being the only non-Beatle ever like credited on a Beatles song.
Ever credited.
Credited, yes, credited. People like, Eric Clapton was in While My Guitar Gently Weeps, but he was like a featured player. Like, it's not like they were this is probably also true. It's not like they were using session musicians and just not crediting them, because that's typically not done anyway. But like they would have guests play little bits sometimes, but they were like, no, give Billy Preston like billing on the single. And you watch him come in and he turns the whole thing around, just like seeing their old friend, having him come in and nail, I think improvise what you immediately recognize as what ends up being the final piano riff on these songs. Like maybe take one, even, and
like the final bit of the album.
No, you go like he comes in and he plays like the piano for Get Back, and you're like, I'm pretty sure he's improvising, but that's how it sounds. He just nails it first time, and they're like, oh, when we record it for real, do it like that. And it sort of like turns the whole mood around, and it's sort of just like the goofiness is tenfold. The amount of fun they're having is tenfold. They just like seem like they're having fun making music together, and it starts to become more and more apparent that like the thing that breaks up the Beatles is that they can't agree about the business of the Beatles. Like,
right.
They don't know business, and so they don't know how to move forward. And there's like a lot of little things, but one of the main ones is Brian Epstein's dead. They don't have a manager. They need a manager. The Rolling Stones manager, Alan Klein, approaches them and is like, hey, how about you sign on with me? And Paul has heard from his father-in-law. I can't remember his name. Something Eastman, obviously. That this guy is bad news. And so Paul is like, look, I want my father-in-law to be our manager. And everyone else in the band is like, that seems selfish and like you're just trying to get control of the band. and then Alan Klein fucks over the Beatles and ends up going to jail and has he does a lot of managing for like the Beatles post breakup, like individually, because they're still under contract with him, the contract that Paul McCartney never signed. And he like pockets a bunch of money from George Harrison's charity concert for Bangladesh.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and he's just a bad news guy. Like Paul was totally right, and it's that sort of thing where it's like a misunderstanding. Like Paul is trying to be helpful, and it just comes out wrong, and he can't figure out like what it is about what he's saying that is rubbing people the wrong way. But he really, really is meaning well, I think, and it's just like, okay, you know, John and George, pick whoever you want, just not Alan Klein. Right. But instead he's like, look, my father-in-law will do it. And he can't understand why they would feel weird about that.
Yeah.
I think they end up going on the record being like, yeah, Paul was right about Alan Klein.
Well,
not that that's, it's impossible to trivialize the Beatles breaking up to one thing because it's so many things, being wrung absolutely dry creatively by various record companies, having their manager and other people that they've known and been close to die kind of tragically, from the early days up through Brian Epstein, and then like growing apart creatively, and then like needing to make business decisions kind of for the first time, and like not being able to navigate it, and like this Alan Klein guy being bad news. Like if Alan Klein wasn't bad news, and Paul's father-in-law was like, oh yeah, Alan Klein, that guy rips. Like maybe they would have made 3 more albums. Who knows?
Maybe we would have had the Beatles a lot longer.
Because it's 2 of the best Beatles albums. The last 2 albums that they made.
Right.
They're
Yeah.
both fantastic. Abbey Road is the last album that they recorded. It's literally my favorite Beatles album.
I don't think I know like almost any of the songs on that album, except for like the obvious ones, like Here Comes the Sun.
Paul had the idea to do a medley, and so the last
the long one?
The long one. Oh yeah, the long one. You remember me tweeting about this?
Yeah.
Every 6 months I tweet about how good the long one is. So everything from You Never Give Me Your Money until the last track of the song is like meant to be taken as one piece of music. And some of them flow a little bit better than the others, but they do have versions of it where they play it all together.
Now.
On like the Abbey Road Deluxe version, there's like a 17-minute long track called The Long One.
Cool.
And I think it is not the best. Like the album versions, I think, are better, but it's really great to hear it all as one piece.
Wait, so the long one is all of the Abbey Road album, like as one song?
No, it's just the second half.
Gotcha.
So it's from, it goes like this. It's from, oh God, that's so annoying. This just listed as medley. Okay, I'll do it from memory. It's You Never Give Me Your Money. You Never Give Me Your Money. She Came in Through the Bathroom Window. Sun King. Mean Mr. Mustard. Polythene Pam. Golden Slumbers. Carry That Weight. The End, and then Her Majesty. That's all one song, basically. That they call the medley or the long one, or Well, it's the album I've got next on my Beatles docket. And I will suggest that I know that this is not exactly what you're doing, because it was released next, but it was actually made after Let It Be.
Right.
And the reason this happens,
I've learned just today.
So one of the things that Alan Klein does is that he does come in and sort of like set the financials of Apple Music. Like he sets it they were like, according to the Beatles, they were kind of hemorrhaging money because they didn't have anyone managing it. Yeah.
Apple Music is a streaming music service.
Right. There was a lawsuit that allowed that to happen. There was a famous lawsuit between Apple Computers and Apple Apple Records about
Well,
the
it's
name
Apple Core.
What's that?
Apple Core.
It's just Apple Records.
Apple Core.
Apple Records. I've heard people call it Apple Core before, but I just called Apple Records. I mean, it is a corporation, so it's Apple Core. Like, there's a pun in there, but it's just called Apple Records Incorporated, I believe.
Well, I mean, it's Apple Core with a PS.com is the website.
Oh, is it? Okay. Well, maybe Apple Records is a subsidiary. Okay, yeah, here it is.
Yeah, maybe they must.
Apple Records
they
is
might
the
have
subsidiary.
They might have added Core later.
Maybe, yeah. Anyway, Apple sues Apple Computers to be like, that's our name. And the courts basically say, you can't trademark the word Apple, which is true and good. But I would love to see Apple Computers take it so lightly if someone decided to make some other kind of Apple thing.
I know. Jesus Christ.
And that is the way of businesses, obviously,
yeah,
is you just...
I mean, even, you know that famous quote from Steve Jobs about this, right?
No.
Or is he has this quote where he's like, "Oh, at Apple, we've always been shameless about taking other people's ideas." And then famously changes his stance on this very dramatically
and maybe,
when it comes to people taking Apple's stuff.
And you know where the Apple startup sound comes from, right? When you turn on an Apple computer, do you know what that sound is?
No.
That sound is the last chord that they play in the Beatles song "A Day in the Life" off Sgt. Pepper. Yep, absolutely. They do that cacophonous sort of thing, and then the very last thing is literally the chord that Apple steals to do as the computer startup sound. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, as a fuck you to Apple Records for suing them for taking their name.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
I don't know about all that. But what I do know, Keith, is that we could keep talking about the Beatles all night.
Yep.
But seeing as how we've already gone 90 minutes over
we
our
didn't even
60
touch on
minute...
conspiracy theories.
Keith, Run Button's not breaking up.
Keith,
this isn't Run Button's last recording.
No.
We can always come back.
No, it's
we
not.
We can always get back.
Can I give you my absolutely baseless conspiracy theory that I invented?
Yes.
Mal Evans, the roadie and personal assistant and sort of fixer guy for the Beatles, who looks like Eric Wareheim.
The fifth Beatle?
I believe he's been called the sixth Beatle.
The sixth Beatle, because someone else was already the fifth.
He did play on a bunch of Beatles songs, and I believe that he may have spent much of the early 1970s trying to get songwriting credits from Paul McCartney for his, various little contributions to Beatles songs. And he may have come up with the Sgt. Pepper concept. Literally come up with the, you should all take on personas and be the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band concept. So, we have a lot to thank Mal Evans for.
I've come around on that album. More than last time we discussed it. So far, it might be my favorite.
I think it's the most overrated Beatles album. I still really like a lot of the songs. I don't like that they don't
one
commit.
Of the most famous bands.
I know.
Of course, their most famous one is going to be overrated. Their most famous one is the White Album, but you just don't feel that that's overrated.
No, I think there's a lot of conflicting ideas about the White Album. I think that the Sgt. Pepper is more universally acclaimed. I think there's a lot of people that are like, the White Album is too long and it's disjointed.
Yeah.
And I think those are both true.
You hear that really, really old Judge John Hodgman episode that was about the Beatles?
No.
The argument was some guy who was a Beatles super fan who felt very strongly that Rubber Soul was the best album and that the Beatles got less good once they became more fractious. And he was taking his friend to fake court because his friend thought the White Album was the best album.
That's tough.
Rubber Soul being the best Beatles album is a really bad take.
You're so wrong about that. I can't even believe that you would say that. Rubber Soul is better than literally every Beatles album that preceded it.
Well, that's
which makes it at least halfway the best. At least. I think it's better than the White Album.
All right.
I think it goes Abbey Road, then Revolver, then Let It Be, then Rubber Soul, then The White Album, then Help, then A Hard Day's Night, and then doesn't matter what's lower than that. Did I miss one? Did I miss one from Rubber
With
Soul
the
onward?
Beatles.
Oh, I didn't. I didn't put Sgt. Pepper in there. Sgt. Pepper is one worse than Rubber Soul.
Okay.
Hold on.
Where's Revolver end up in this?
Second, after
Okay.
Abbey Road.
I mean, Revolver's definitely better than Rubber Soul.
Okay, so you've got Drive My Car. I think that song's hilarious, and I think it's an intentional comedy about the kind of songs that they were singing up until that point. Norwegian Wood, that's a classic. I don't even have to say what's so good about that. You Won't See Me,
okay.
that's a really good song. Nowhere Man, one of their first songs that can be absolutely said for sure is not a love song. It's really maybe one of the first.
sixth album.
I know, yes. And so Nowhere Man, I think, is a great song. Think for
It is a
Yourself,
great
an
song.
early Harrison song. It's okay. For a long time, George Harrison was my favorite Beatles. I'm allowed to say that. The Word, again, the word is just okay. You know, that's the word is love. Yeah. Michelle's fantastic, and it was, I think, the most played Beatles song that year, the year that it was released. I love Michelle. What Goes On? One of the best. There's not very many, but it's one of the best Ringo songs. That's for sure. I love whenever Ringo sings. If Ringo's singing on it, I like it.
I pretty much agree.
He should have gotten double the amount of songs to sing because I really love his voice.
Seriously, yeah.
Girl, actually, do not remember Girl.
Well, that's fine because we're 90 minutes over, and we still have to get to. Wait, let
me finish this because only a couple more.
okay,
Let me at least skip then to In My Life. This is John Lennon's best song. It's top 5 Beatles songs easily.
Even better than Revolution 9.
Yes, even better.
I find that hard to believe.
Maybe I can be convinced that Sgt. Pepper is one better than instead of one worse than Rubber Soul, but it's definitely
It is. It's clearly is.
It's definitely
well,
at
actually,
least.
I don't. Okay.
I think they're
You've
very
now-
much in conversation. I think maybe Rubber
now
Soul
confused me.
I think maybe Rubber Soul is the most similar Beatles album to Sgt. Pepper's. Like I know that there's a lot of differences in every album from Rubber Soul onward, but if you had to pick one that's most like, I guess it would be Magical Mystery Tour, but that's a weird side thing where
Oh, you know what? I actually in re-listening to it, I liked it a lot more than whenever the last time I listened to that one was. I really liked Magical Mystery Tour.
I think a lot of people are confused about which songs are on Magical Mystery Tour versus which ones are on Sgt. Pepper. Like,
Ooh.
I think
My takeaway was like, you guys should have just taken the best songs from both of these and made that Sgt. Pepper's.
yeah. So I had a burrito bite.
Okay. Is it now okay for me to introduce the thing that we'll be recording next tonight?
Yeah, but we will need a quick break for me to set it up, and I have to go to the bathroom, and I want to get something to drink.
Of course. I've got to go listen to Helter Skelter again.
That is a good one.
I love that song so much.
There's a fun little tidbit about that song. Is Paul McCartney heard
the Charles Manson thing?
Yeah, he heard about Charles Manson. He was like, I want to write something that'll inspire him to commit murders. Paul McCartney heard Pete Townsend or something from someone from The Who bragging about that they just recorded like the heaviest, dirtiest song that's ever been written.
Yes.
You've heard this. Okay.
Well, I think we actually talked about this before, but I brought it up and I couldn't remember because I was like, I thought they said that they were like riffing off of Led Zeppelin, and you were like, that doesn't make sense because Led Zeppelin didn't exist yet, which is true. So yeah, okay, so it was The Who, yeah, and so they were just like, we'll make the fucking heaviest song ever.
Yeah, but he doesn't know what song it was. Like, he never heard the song. He didn't know if what they made was heavier or not. He just was like, well, without hearing how heavy that is, I've still got to try to top it.
Yeah, and can I say, he probably did, though.
Oh, really? I was actually going to go the other way. He said he probably didn't.
I mean, the Helter Skelter is so wild to me because it doesn't even remotely sound like what you think of the Beatles sounding like.
No.
But I love it so much. Like, it literally is. I love that the story is like, oh, we just wanted to like one up the Who. Because I mean, they kind of like, I listened to Helter Skelter and I totally believe that they could have been like a heavy, almost like a heavy metal band or something back, like what heavy metal meant back then.
It very famously is sometimes cited as like
the first metal song,
an influence to like future like hard rock and heavy metal and stuff.
I could see that.
Yeah, I can kind of see it.
It's so that song, I mean, like, it undersells itself by being from the Beatles. It goes so hard, and I love that it's just about a slide. It's so funny.
Yeah, that's classic Paul McCartney.
The lyrics were written as a different song, and then they just took those lyrics and slapped them onto Helter Skelter.
Give me one more thing about two more things about the Beatles real quick. I'll be very quick. So,
okay.
As they're growing apart, I think it's really fascinating to see what their first projects were, and it kind of becomes like, well, whatever their other problems were, it makes so much sense that they released Abbey Road and Let It Be in like basically in 1970, right? And then they each all had, even Ringo had an album come out in 1970 of their own. And it makes so much sense what those albums were. George Harrison released the extremely good All Things Must Pass, an absolute explosion of songwriting, triple album, because he's been literally, it is sort of like the creative release of him being contained for so long by Paul and John needing to write all those songs. I mean, triple album. It's a double album with some like jams on top. And it is like super overproduced by Phil Spector, convicted murderer Phil Spector. He doesn't become convicted for murder for much longer, but he absolutely was committing heinous crimes at the time, according to his ex-wife, who said that he kept her prisoner in their mansion, and his adopted children who accused him of sexual abuse. Yeah, just an absolute disgusting and miserable person, Phil Spector. This was my unfounded conspiracy theory that I invented. I think that Mal Evans paid the Los Angeles Police Department to murder Mal Evans. I absolutely believe this with my whole heart.
Sorry, do you mean Phil Spector?
Yeah, Phil Spector. What did I say?
You said Mal Evans paid the police to murder Mal Evans.
Oh, no. Phil Spector paid the Los Angeles Police Department to kill Mal Evans.
Wow.
That's my conspiracy theory. I've never seen anybody else say that, but Mal Evans was writing a book on the Beatles that mysteriously disappeared along with his ashes when he was killed.
What?
Yes, this is totally true. He was 1 week off from publishing a book on the Beatles called like Living the Beatles Legend. And he was killed in a very suspicious suicide by cop that all of the Beatles who commented on it were like not so sure of. He's writing this book, and he was working at the time with John Lennon and Phil Spector, or, you know, a couple years prior had been working with John Lennon and Phil Spector. And my absolutely, totally baseless conspiracy theory is that Mal Evans was going to publish something about, or that Phil Spector thought that Mal Evans was going to publish something about him, and so he paid the LA cops to kill him.
Wow.
Yep, that's my conspiracy theory.
And now we've heard it. It's been confirmed.
It's been confirmed.
Keith has done the legwork, just like that woman who caught the Golden State Killer. One more murder that Phil Spector is guilty of, and we've heard it from Keith Carberry. Yeah. Thank you so much for your contribution to music historiography.
So that's what George Harrison released, right? He released All Things Must Pass, absolutely required listening. And then Paul McCartney released McCartney and Ram, which was sort of like him trying to keep the Beatles thing going. Like, he was like, no, I'm trying to make my own music, but I have to do it by myself. And I think Ram is just so good. McCartney 1 is like, has some real shining bits, but it's not my favorite. But they were both absolutely panned at the time because people thought that he broke up the Beatles. They were fucking mad at him. And
Right.
so they were really, really negatively received despite selling extremely well. Ram, I think, is undoubtedly his best work, maybe with the exception of Band on the Run, the third Wings album. But shout out to Linda Eastman, who was shoved into having to be a musician despite not being a musician.
Oh, no.
Because Paul McCartney needed someone to replace the Beatles in his life.
Wow.
And she took it in stride, I guess, because, I mean,
I just assumed she was a musician already.
No, she was not.
Okay.
And she could sing, though. And then Ringo went around touring and did like a bunch of live shows because that's what he wanted to do. And John Lennon did like his Primal Scream Therapy album that starts off with that absolutely gut-wrenching song Mother about how he didn't really have parents, that ends with him singing Mama Don't Go, Daddy Come Home until he's like hoarse in the throat and like basically crying. It is, I think, maybe his best song.
Some light listening.
Yeah, light listening. But it's such a stripped down thing. Like you can tell, like they all went in wildly different directions for their first album. The same year that the Beatles broke up, which is crazy.
I'll have to go listen to all of these after the Beatles.
You absolutely have to listen to all these, and do not forget to listen to Band on the Run by Wings because it's so good.
I'm not going to forget to listen to Ringo.
So anyway, that's it. That's all I have. I'm wiped out on the Beatles.
And that's all. We have nothing left that we'll ever have to say on the Beatles. But this brings us to the end of the show, and thank you all for listening. But we do need to tell you about the thing that we're recording right after this. It's going to be the next Patreon exclusive Let's Play, kind of, the successor to our Shenmue and Shenmue 2s and what have you. We're going to be playing 1995 PC FMV-ish adventure game, Titanic Adventure Out of Time. And
in the style of an FMV adventure game, just not the budget.
Perhaps.
It's not literally FMV. It just, what if someone really wanted it to look like it was?
I have a feeling it might turn out all the better for this limitation.
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited about it. I even recently I heard some good things about this game randomly recently on a game podcast. Someone was like, "Oh, that game! I love that game."
That's wild. Because Ted, I've known about this game for a long time. My cousin Ted has been saying you should do this on Run Button for 8 years.
Oh, wow. Okay. I did not realize this.
Yes. Yeah. I think I've mentioned it before, but it's just not, it's not required memory, I don't think.
Sure.
I gotta go to the bathroom. You finish this preamble, and if you could maybe also tweet again and put it in the Discord again so that people know we're about to start the game.
Yeah, okay. And get the fuck out of here while I finish the show.
Okay, bye.
All right, well, if you're interested, and I hope you are, in seeing us play Titanic Adventure Out of Time, consider subscribing to our Patreon at patreon.com/runbutton at level 3. That will give you access to the patron-exclusive Let's Play. We would love if you did that, and who would love it the most is probably my extremely sad bank account and all of the bills that are piling up in front of me. But I'm excited about this game because I think it'll be a lot of fun. I've even heard that it's, quote, lit. So thanks for listening. Come back next time. Bye-bye.